So, good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's session where we'll be doing CSEC Geography, especially going through paper twos and, of course, discussing many topics or, working our way through a lot of the questions that are on the paper or typical questions that could potentially come on the exam. Uh, tonight, tonight's tutors are myself, Duvania Evans, and Tisheika Thompson, and we'll basically be working our way through a lot of these concepts and principles along the way. So here we have the 2023 paper, right? And we're just gonna basically go through it to kind of, start us off. We're gonna touch on map work as a separate topic or a separate area much later on in the session. So we're just gonna go ahead and mostly focus right now on the situational type of questions that tend to ask about factors, features, or providing reasons for, things that you may see in society or just typical things that happen. So I think page 8 here is a good page to start at. So the question here is asking, a hurricane warning is issued to the public by the meteorological office. State 2 reasons why a hurricane warning is normally issued. Does anyone have any ideas as to why hurricane warnings are issued? Or let's the first question then be, what is a hurricane warning? Does anyone have any ideas? Okay, so all right. All right, so no responses as yet. All right, so a hurricane warning is basically an official method, or rather the official method that is typically used to inform the public and marine interests of a storm's location, its intensity, and its movement, right? So where could the storm, where is the storm currently? What's the projected track of the storm? What is the current wind speed, what direction the wind is blowing. And of course, these are very important things to consider when you're thinking of hurricanes, right? And 2 reasons why a hurricane warning would normally be issued is, of course, to inform the public of the hurricane that's coming or approaching, and as well as to prompt individuals to begin their preparations, because once the hurricane actually makes a landfall, right, you won't really be able to easily prepare for it, right, because it's already here. Most businesses would have been closed, right? Storm activity would make conditions for travel become a bit more difficult and in a lot of cases dangerous. So those, I would say, are the 2 main reasons why a hurricane warning would normally be issued. Now, moving into the second question, or rather second section of the question, it asks to describe 2 weather conditions associated with the passage of a hurricane at each of the following stages. So would anyone like to have a try at this one? Give you some time to think about it. Right. Okay, so basically what we're talking about with this question is we want to look at the weather conditions that are associated or that you typically find at different stages of the hurricane. So before a hurricane approaches, you might have, let's see, maybe I could look at the participants, maybe because someone could possibly tell me what, okay, what about Rihanna? Uh, Rihanna, would you like to have a go at this question here? Okay, so Kiana said strong winds, right? So strong winds could be a sign before, right? Before a hurricane. So you'd have like, high wind speeds. So the wind speed starts to pick up, especially as, the storm is approaching much closer. Janae said the sky would be overcast, right? So you slowly see an increase in cloud cover, right? All right. Rainfall. Yes, so rainfall is also another weather condition because it might start out like, as just like a little drizzle, and then as the storm or the hurricane gets much closer and actually makes landfall, right? The rain would become you get more intense rainfall, you get heavy rainfall activity, right? But also some other things to consider, right? Could be high humidity, right? High humidity levels, right, in the atmosphere. We could also even talk about the fact that the weather could also be calm, right? You could literally have your typical sunny skies as well, right? You could have light breeze, right? There could literally be no clouds at all, right? But then when we get to the stage now where we're talking about what's happening during the hurricane, this is where we would make the distinction that you're going to have very strong winds of around 74 miles per hour or roughly 119 kilometers per hour. And this would be the minimum, requirement for a hurricane to be classified as a category 1 hurricane, as per the Saffir-Simpson, um, hurricane wind scale, right? And of course, you have heavy rainfall, very heavy rainfall. Rihanna said flooding, right? Yes, flooding is also something that can take place during hurricane. And we'd have mentioned very heavy rainfall. And then in the aftermath of a hurricane, you would still have some like lingering winds, but you find that the intensity and the speed begins to slow and be much more like reduced because the conditions would be moving towards, going back to normal weather conditions, right? You find that the rainfall intensity also reduces, or it just might stop altogether, right? Once the hurricane has passed, right? Uh, so yes. So those are some of the things that we'd be thinking about when we are looking at weather conditions associated with the passage of a hurricane. Okay, so this question here asks us to explain how two of the following factors might directly influence the weather and climate on the tropical island shown in the diagram in figure 2, right? And the three factors that they provide are altitude, latitude, and distance from the sea. Now, I'd like to go through each of these because I think that, you might, should the question reappear in another form, they might just ask you to just explain two of the factors, right? Or they could literally provide any two factors, or they could provide one factor and ask you to speak about how they influence weather and climate. So it's better to be prepared for all three of these rather than just, one or two. Okay, so would anyone want to try a response for altitude? Sure. Want to make sure that, you guys are participating. How about Suan? Suan, would you like to try explaining how altitude could influence weather and climate?
Okay, so I was thinking, right? as they say, the higher you go, the cooler it gets, right? So
right?
as you're increasing in altitude, it gets more cooler, which um yeah, it get more cooler, which how can I say this? Wait.
You're on the right track. You're on the right track. It gets more cooler, right? You're
And
actually right.
wait, so therefore the environment, or not really the environment, but the location that you're in will be cooler than like if you're at a lower altitude.
Right. That's correct.
Okay.
So basically, what happens is altitude in itself is referring to the height of the land above sea level, right? And as Sue Ann would have said, the higher you go, the cooler it gets, right? So this would mean that altitude could have a very impactful effect on the temperature that an area would receive or experience, right? And generally, the what happens is on average for like every, I think, 1,000 meters you go above elevation of 1,000 meters of elevation above sea level, sorry, you lose, or rather 6.4 degrees Celsius of the temperature is lost. So what basically that means is that the temperature would fall by 6.4 degrees Celsius for every 1,000 meters that you climb. So just the essence of altitude is that the higher you go, the cooler it gets. Um, what about latitude? Um, Ashanti, would you like to try explaining how latitude might affect weather and climate? Okay, not sure if Ashanti is hearing us, but all right. So basically for latitude, latitude is referring to the distance, right? The Vadesh, you can go ahead. You can open up your mic.
I revised it some time ago. All right. I think latitude it provides the angle of intensity of the sunlight. I believe something
Right.
like that.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Okay, cool. And it can affect temperature gradient, precipitation patterns, and atmospheric circulation.
Right. Yes. 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 Okay. So latitude refers, when we talk about latitude, we're talking about, the distance, whether above or below the equator. So we're looking at a location's position in relation to the equator. And what happens is generally areas at the equator or those located within close proximity to the equator tend to receive much more insolation, right? So and by insolation, we're talking about exposure to the sun's rays. So Vadesh would have mentioned, equatorial regions being in receipt of much more sunlight. So that's really what we're talking about. And that would also impact the temperature of the area, right? So when you think of, equatorial locations, such as like the Amazon basin in South America, or um the Congo Basin in Africa, right? These areas tend to receive a lot of sunlight, and so they have very high temperatures of upwards of like 26 degrees Celsius in comparison to much northern locations like Canada or Iceland, for example, that, you know, they they don't receive that much sunlight. right? And so they tend to be much cooler. And then of course we could talk about distance from the sea, where here you're looking at, as it's said, distance from the sea, how the sea or how our community's location on the coast versus being inland, further inland, would affect, the temperature. So the main thing to understand with the question, with this factor, is that the seas tend to warm and cool much slower than land, right? So they tend to be very useful in moderating the temperature of coastal areas, for example, right? And they tend to have a cooling effect when the coastal area is warm and a warming effect when the coastal area is cold. And then, of course, right, as Sue Ann would have mentioned in the chat, the sea breeze effect, right? So the land and sea breeze effect also comes into play when we talk about distance from the sea, right? Where we have during the day, sea breeze basically occurs as land heats up, land tends to heat up faster than the sea, right? And this causes the air over the land to rise, right, as it heats up. And then you get this influx of cooler, much denser air from the sea moving onto the land to sort of replace, that hot air that would have been lost. And then at night, the land cools at a much faster rate than the sea. And so the air over the land would cool very quickly and it will sink. And, that's why we get much cooler temperatures at night on land. And the warm and, the cool air would then flow, across the land mass. So those are some of the things to think about with a question, with responding to such a question. Hoping that everyone is still following. No, this question here is a question that is asking us to basically explain the long-term effects, right, that a Category 5 hurricane could have on particular sections or particular areas within our country, right? So looking at the infrastructure, economy, environment, and I believe another factor, social, right? Would anyone like to tell me how a hurricane could affect a country's infrastructure? Yes, Videsh. Infrastructure would be referring to buildings, houses, also roads, right? Power
All right,
lines.
well, all right, so most likely the hurricane would destroy most of the buildings and stuff like that. Causing, I don't want to talk about money in it because economy next, so I wouldn't
Right.
say anything about money. I'll just say how, I'll just say, maybe like a 3 lines, how the hurricane would destroy the buildings and stuff like that. And economy, I will talk about the money problems, etc.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
And the
so
environment and environment. Well, it can destroy habitats and stuff like that.
right, destroys habitats. Okay,
And
what about social?
100% sure what I want. Like
Oh,
I don't understand 100% of what they mean by social. Like,
you'd be looking at basically how it affects people, right? The direct impacts that it would have on people.
oh well, it can have like I can bring back money. I can see like people have strain because of money and stuff like that. I can bring back money.
Right, yes, loss of livelihoods could be one, right? Okay,
Yeah.
so
Well, what about loss of life that could going on?
social as well, yes, loss of life.
And well, economic damage. I could put that in economy.
Right, because they would have
Economic
lost their
instability.
right, they could have lost their jobs as well. And
Yeah.
they could possibly need to rely more on welfare services. So
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Videsh, for participating in that question. So just to build a little bit more on what we'd have been discussing just now, as it relates to infrastructure, someone in the chat said that uh, high wind speeds could knock down utility poles. Yes, roads can be destroyed as a result of continuous rainfall. And of course, light poles could be destroyed, causing loss of electricity services, no connection, and things like that. So, right. So hurricanes could affect or rather impose significant threats and damages to infrastructure, right? The strong winds, right? And also the heavy rainfall bring forward, flood hazards as well, because flood waters could cause long-term damages to roads, right? It can cause, the roads to be the soil under like the pavement and stuff to be eroded away, right? Which would cause the weakening of pavements, and it can cause the road to collapse. Also, strong winds can make, fallen debris become airborne, right? And this could allow them to travel through the air at very high speeds. They can break windows, smash into buildings. And of course, these can cause very significant damages. As it relates to the economy, we could zero in on particular sectors of the economy, such as the agricultural sector, or you could talk about tourism, right? Hurricanes tend to bring forth strong winds, as we'd have discussed just now. And so these strong winds that are associated with hurricanes, especially something as strong as a Category 5, can bring forward strong storm surges, right? That could cause severe damages to tourist facilities that are located on the coast, right? Such as hotels, restaurants, maybe entertainment venues, right? And these can have severe damages, or rather have severe implications for the tourism sector, because now businesses won't be able to operate as quickly, right, as they could have. They have to be thinking about spending money to fix, what's been broken or what's been damaged. And of course, having to spend money to ensure that the quality of the service that they're offering and the quality of their accommodation has not been compromised, right? And also, they would have to spend, depending on the level of damages, they would also have to spend money on putting in preventative or mitigation measures in place, such as, for example, maybe putting up a seawall, right? To ensure that, they can protect the premises depending on how close they are to the sea. And then also for the agricultural sector, we could talk about how strong hurricane winds can uproot trees, right? It can, wash away, like landslides can remove useful soil layers, especially the topsoil layer, right? And we could talk about an example, which is, when Hurricane Ivan affected Jamaica back in 2004, it caused major damages to banana production by, leaving people unemployed. There were like roughly 8,000 people who were left without their jobs, right? And you had losses in production, right, for up to, I think, for over 6 months, right? And these losses were estimated to be around 930 million Jamaican dollars, right? So, and these losses are a combination of direct losses, as would have been caused by direct damage to the crops, right? As well as indirect damage that you'd be looking at the money that you'd have to spend to get the banana production back on the way, plus the money that you'd be losing throughout the waiting period of, replanting trees and things like that. For environmental issues, we could talk about, of course, as I would have mentioned just now, the uprooting of trees, right? Uprooting of trees and loss of vegetation can have severe impacts on, the quality of soil, because now there's nothing keeping the soil together. So it's now more prone to instances of land degradation, right? Where, the soil can easily be eroded, right? We could also talk about habitat destruction, right? Especially in the cases of like the coral reefs, right? Because storm surge action can have devastating effects on coral reefs, right? Um, Especially we could also discuss the fact that floodwaters tend to contain a lot of debris, right? And these may settle and then cause pollution after the floodwaters recede. And of course, also the debris or the pollutants in the water can flow out to the sea and of course causing, marine pollution. Uh, as it relates to social factors, just building on a couple of the others that we'd have discussed just now, earlier with Videsh, would have been, displacement could be another one. So people have to leave their homes, right? Some cases, depending on the severity of the hurricane, it would more so probably be a short-term displacement, but you do have long-term displacement, right? Where people just simply cannot go back to their original community or, where their homes are, right? Because the damages were so severe. And then in building on top of that, you have, homelessness can happen because if people's homes are damaged, right? And they don't have anywhere else to go, they don't have any relatives that could accommodate them, you're looking at, this person being homeless. Also, loss of livelihoods, right, could increase, an individual's reliance on government provided social and welfare services, right? So now the government would have to be looking to set aside funds to assist people to get them back on their feet, especially businesses, right? Um, you could also talk about the psychological effects, right? We're talking a lot about mental health nowadays, right? What are the psychological effects that are associated with hurricanes, right? Do people suffer, do people have, issues with trauma, right? And also you could talk about, the rise in um, health impacts, right? So floodwaters, especially after the hurricane passed, might still settle and be stagnant, right? And, stagnant water tends to be the breeding ground for mosquitoes. So you're looking at the possibility here of an increase in mosquito-borne diseases, right? And also the possibility of waterborne diseases, especially when, floodwaters contaminate, reservoirs and might also cause damage, like heavy rainfall in some cases can cause damages to, water infrastructure, right? So these are some of the things that we could think about as it relates to social. Someone saying something just now? Yeah, don't think so. All right. Okay, so this question here is they asked to draw a line graph. So they do provide the grade. So basically for this question, you'd match up the year with the birth rate. So, and everything is basically set out here, right? So it asks to state one statement about the population of country Z. So just looking at this table, does anyone have any idea as to what this table will be discussing as it relates to the population of country Z?
Low birth rates.
Right, so a declining birth rate, yes. Does anyone else have anything else that could possibly be explained?
Could you say that the birth rate is fluctuating?
Um, they, uh, not hearing if you're speaking.
Could you say if it is fluctuating throughout the years?
So you're basically talking about right here where you have 05 to 2010, where it kind of goes up and then it falls. So right, it's fluctuating in that area right there. But I'd say overall, it's having from 1990 to 2015, it's showing a decline in the birth rates. And this could indicate that the population is becoming less youthful over the period because you're having less births, right? And then also we could talk about, the what we could even spin off of this and talk about what this could possibly mean for the development of the country, right? But not gonna spend too much time on that one. Okay, so okay, so here's another situational question. This one asks to outline how two of the following factors could influence the distribution and density of the population in the Caribbean. And the first one, of course, is relief. Well, not relief, sorry, but physical. Physical, but yes, relief would be an example of a physical factor. Physical factor. So I basically gave you guys like the answers to how you could approach physical. So could anyone explain how relief as a subset of the physical factor, or rather an example of the physical factor, can affect this population distribution and density? Yes, Vadash, you can go ahead.
All right. So basically, people who want to go to another area, they are mostly attracted to areas like with mountains and theme parks and stuff like that. Like with, I don't, I wonder if I should use tourists as a word for this. So I use
Wait, go
tourists
again. Can you repeat?
like physical factors. So example like mountains and stuff like that. When I say mountains, I mean like not like live on the mountains, but like a view of it. Like people will be attracted to the view of a mountain.
Okay, I see where you're going with that one, but that's not the approach that you would take for like responding to this question.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's not it. Janae, your hand is raised. You could go ahead.
Could you say that in a mountain, because it's a hilly area, it would be harder to build buildings for housing, and so because it's more difficult, and the roads, it would be more difficult to build roads, so persons they would settle more on the flatlands and closer to the coastline.
Right. Yes. So yeah, that's what would be looking for a response to physical, right? So
Miss,
yes, Kadesh, yeah.
one of it could be fertile land because they're going to grow crops and stuff like that.
Right. Yes, that could also be a physical one. So, proximity to fertile lands. What could be an indication that the land could be fertile? What what natural feature?
I'm not 100% sure. Grass, like green grass, like green grass.
No, think more along the lines of uh um topographical features on the land surface.
I'm not sure.
Okay, so like a river, right? So if you're doing map work, for example, let's just look at that little segment for now. So if you're doing map work, for example, right? And you should see a river, and not literally close, like right next door to the river, but like within like the vicinity, right? You might see settlements pop up right there. That could be because of the presence of a river, and rivers tend to we know that rivers tend to form like floodplains, right? floodplains tend to be very fertile. They have very fertile soil. So when rivers, typically flood their banks or overflow in instances of heavy rainfall, and the water, overflows along on the land surface, it tends to leave behind a lot of, minerals that it would have been carrying, or nutrient-rich, sediment that tends to settle on the land surface. And these are useful for, the success of crop cultivation, as well as in certain areas of, volcanic areas. So this one though is a little tricky, because even though it's hazardous, right, you do have some areas where, because there's like a volcano nearby, right, the soil at the foothill of the volcano tends to be very fertile. So after, maybe a couple of years after like a volcanic eruption, and it's, been cleared, and the area could possibly see more like small scale farmers moving into like cultivate crops in these areas. It's because the volcanic ash, or whatever, deposits after the volcanic activity, they tend to have a lot of nutrients, right? And are mineral rich. So that also helps to promote good agricultural development. So these are, and another physical factor you could think about is the presence of natural resources, right? So are there, is the area mineral rich, right? Like, is there maybe like some natural resource that could be exploited that could provide employment for people, right? So those are some of the things that you could think about as it relates to physical. So relief, right? Flat lands are more ideal for construction and for settlement, for agriculture, right? Soil, you want to, populations tend to settle or be like heavily heavily concentrated in areas that have fertile soils, right? That can, of course, facilitate agriculture, presence of natural resources. What about historical? Does anyone have any ideas to how historical factors could play a role in settlement patterns?
If an area has bad history, like I don't know, a war or some uh bad luck happened in the area, then people wouldn't go to live there.
I don't think that's how you'd approach. I don't think that's the approach that I would be looking for. But I understand what you're saying though, but that's not really the approach. Would you like to try again with it?
I don't know anything else, miss.
Okay.
This would culture be one, like, I don't know.
Okay, so historically in the Caribbean, right? What you had was when, the Europeans came to the Caribbean and they started to, uh create settlements or like communities. There are a couple things that they would have prioritized, right? And these would basically be ensuring that, wherever they're planning to create settlements, they have physical benefits, economic benefits, right? They, of course, offer human benefits, right? So you tend to find that if you look at a lot of our capital cities, for example, right, they tend to be located maybe close to coastal locations, or they tend to be, located in areas of economic significance, right? So historical factors basically play a role because they determine the location of capital cities, right? So why is it that many of our capitals are located on the coasts? Because it facilitated at a time the, ease of transport for, agricultural produce or anything at all to be exported. So you wanted to have ease of transport to export markets, right? You wanted to have access to a port, right? If you look at many of the capital cities in Jamaica, they tend to be located relatively close towards coastal locations. And even if not the capital cities, you look at large towns, right? They tend to be located very close to the coast, right? So historical factors basically play a role in population distribution and density, because they would have established capital cities that would have formed the hub for transport networks, commercial networks, telecommunication networks, like all the essential services of a country is located within the capital cities. And these would have been created from, previous years throughout history. As it relates to socioeconomic distribution and density, this again would be looking at, the opportunities for employment, for education, right? For like people to have a better life, right? So wherever you might find that people could have jobs, they might want to be located closer to these, locations, right? People want to be located closest to have close proximities to, educational institutions, right? So if you look at places that have a lot of high schools or, universities, right? Someone said, Vedesh said better healthcare systems, right? So you tend to find most of the best hospitals being located, right, in a lot of the cities, right? And these cities within the Caribbean tend to be very densely populated with with clusters, with distributional clusters in particular areas, right? Right. Okay, so want us to get to our break very quickly, so I'm gonna approach the next question here. Okay, so this one asks us to outline two possible reasons for the differences in birth rates between Barbados and Nigeria. So, right off the bat, does anyone have any ideas to what could cause like this massive difference that you're seeing here? A hand is raised, I believe. You can go ahead, Jenny.
Miss, could it be because Barbados is a small island, and Nigeria is a larger country, so it has more persons, more people in it?
Um, I'm not sure if I really like that response. Can you think of another response or another way you could approach it? Okay, so I'll go to Sue Ann and then I'll come back to you, Jenny. So Sue Ann, you can go ahead.
Miss, could it be because Barbados have a lot of older age people, meaning that they can't what you call it? Miss, like reproduce as quickly, not really reproduce, but have children as much as Nigeria, and then Nigeria could have a lot of younger people, or let me say like persons that can like have children. Are you call those the oldest younger stage or working stage?
Okay, okay. Um, okay, so All right. The You see, when you get a question like this, you'd be thinking about, so many of you guys would have been like on the right track in terms of finding, the factors that could affect birth rates, right? But one of the key things I would say or one of the easier things to like think about, right, in this case, you could look at, you know, healthcare systems, right? So healthcare systems in the sense that Nigeria could have a very high infant mortality rate as opposed to Barbados, right? So their infant healthcare systems might not be the best. And so you tend to have a lot of kids, a lot of babies passing away. So to try and counteract that, you have, families trying to have as many kids as possible with the hope that, one or two or three or so, survive, right? So you could be looking at, the healthcare system as it relates to infants, right? Another thing you could think about is the educational opportunities available to women, right? So what you find is that countries that tend to have lower birth rates, they have the women in those countries tend to have more opportunities, and they tend to be more career driven. They're seeking, to get more education, they're working. So, you don't really find such high birth rates. Yeah. So that's another factor that you could think about. Anyone, Janae, I'd like to come back to you. Can you think of anything else?
Yes, I don't think so.
Okay. Okay, another one that you could also look at is the availability of contraceptive and family planning services, right? So, it maybe in Barbados, there's, more widespread availability of contraceptives, right? Or birth control measures, so that could also influence them having, a lower birth rate, right? And also, cultural differences. I'm not sure if anyone had mentioned that, but cultural differences could also play a role because in some cultures, having a lot of children or having a very large family is also heavily promoted, right? And that tends to be found a lot in, much much less economically developed countries, right? Where they tend to prioritize having large countries as opposed to more economically developed countries that tend to prioritize having smaller families, All right, explain two causes of population growth in urban areas of the Caribbean. So when we're talking about population growth, of course, we're talking about, increasing population size, right? And of course, there are many reasons that we could think of for, population growth. And okay, yeah, Vida, she could go ahead.
Um, Healthcare, educational systems, and transportational. Also, it might have more houses. Like it would have like more houses to go into and stuff like that.
Okay. So, you're thinking about like employment opportunities, social services, such as, healthcare, you'd have said, right? Because like hospitals tend to be found in a lot of cities or large towns that are urban areas, right? Um,
Oh no, wait, I make a mistake. The one was set for transport. That was going to be like against it. It would have been like a strain on transportation services if it had too much people on urban areas. So that's what I meant by that. But wrong question answer too.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, the two causes of population growth that you could have in urban areas. You could talk about, internal. Okay, Ray, yeah, you'd like to go? How about go at this one?
You
You
could
could go ahead.
also you could also say that more urbanated areas have more recreational activities, so people will be more drawn to areas where they could have more fun with their families and stuff.
Right, because cities tend to, have active or very strong, entertainment or nightlife activities, right? So yes, that's another reason. Uh, right. So I think those are some pretty good ones that you guys just, mentioned just so we could move on from this question. And then also I think another one I could just touch on right here is the reduction or the more people moving away from agrarian or agricultural, their involvement in agriculture, right? So people are now looking to other jobs, whether, in the service industry, right? The food processing or manufacturing industries, right? So more people are trading, agricultural lifestyles for more in-office type of jobs. Uh, This question here asks us to explain two measures that have been used in the Caribbean to control the rate of urbanization. Does anyone have any idea of any way in
This could
which,
be decentralization.
right, decentralization? Could you expand a little bit more on decentralization?
So means instead of in the urban areas having all the medical and educational facilities, they could move like a hospital to a rural area, so people don't have to flock to that urban area, but they can go to the medical facility in the rural area, so that yeah.
It's making healthcare services more easily accessible in rural areas, right? To reduce the burden of someone who might be suffering from an illness to have to go all the way, to a city, right? To get healthcare services. Ray, you could go ahead.
I think one of the reasons was to make like have certain regulations that only certain people could go through, like have certain types of documentation, like you need this set of documents so you could apply for a house or a job in in an urbanated area.
Hmm. I am not sure if that one would be a good measure to use, right? Because the documentation, I'm not sure if that actually happens, right? I'm not sure if you'd want to use that as a measure. Uh, does anyone else have like any other ideas?
Miss,
Yes,
Miss, I have a question. Miss, is something called green zone because I don't remember what that is called, but I want to make sure.
pardon?
Miss, I was wondering, Miss, it's about zoning, like as was mentioned. Miss, I think the word is green zone, Miss. I'm not sure, but
Green-
well,
uh, well, yeah, green zones are basically areas that would have been like what it kind of helps to be like a buffer between an urban area versus like, more rural areas. It's mostly used to control the growth of this of like urban sprawl. It's sometimes used as a measure, like, you put these zones in place to say, okay, you cannot, we don't want the urban area to spread too far or to expand so far, that it's now growing into too much into rural areas. So I mean, green zones could be used, right? Could be used as an example. But what about the development of new towns, right? So governments look towards, creating, new towns. So, for example, a lot of times when you guys are looking at your maps, right, you'd see capital cities, but then you also see the presence of other towns, and sometimes it's listed as a large town or literally an other town, right, or just town. So this basically helps to, create new residential areas and new areas for businesses to move into, right? So that helps to also control the rate of urbanization. So it helps to develop and build new communities, right? We could so those are some of the things, right, that you could consider as it relates to controlling urbanization, right? And of course, just the concept of, sustainable development, where, the you're looking at preserving rural lifestyles and rural environments, right? So that also helps to, retain people in a lot of these areas, right? And this can also be achieved through, of like creating products or services such as like, heritage tourism and ecotourism, right? That looks toward conserving rural environments, lifestyles, and also it provides job opportunities so people don't feel the need to have to leave, they don't feel the need to leave and go to an urban area to have a job. So, right. So things like those would be some of the measures that we could discuss. This question here asks to do a bar chart. Again, the grid is provided and stuff. All right, so here we have a picture, right? So it's asking to state the type of farming that is shown in figure 3. Does anyone have any idea as to what kind of farming this could be?
Commercial?
Right, commercial, but what type of commercial farming? Is it what type of commercial farming is it?
Monoculture?
Right. So it's monoculture because we can see where it's the planting of one crop, right? So we could literally just put that it is commercial arable farming, right? So that's the type of
Miss,
farming. Yes, you could go ahead.
Miss,
Yeah, you could go ahead.
large scale farming could do for that?
As in for the type of farming?
Yeah, because I seen a whole field, so there's action. Like if large scale farming could work.
Yeah, but the large scale farm is correct, right? But it has a particular term that you'd use. So you'd say that it is commercial arable farming. So yeah,
And what
right.
about it have a specific name for the small scale farming too?
Small scale farming, we're looking more at subsistence agriculture, subsistence farming.
Alright, thanks.
Yeah. All right, here it asks to list 3 features of the type of farming shown in figure 3. And this is fairly this is fairly an easy one. We could talk about, like, as you can see in the diagram, right? You see the sprinklers, right? So commercial farming, especially this large scale, they tend to use a lot of technology and machinery, right? So sprinklers could be an evidence, tractors, right? Of course, it tends to take place on large expanses of land or large plots of land. So as you can see, the picture in the diagram that's shown here is a very large, field, right? Also, we could talk about the fact that, they tend to be more like advanced, or they tend to have the layout of the farm is usually in such a way that it allows, for an ease of whether fertilization or irrigation. So in this case, you can see the rows here, and if you look closely, you could kind of see this sort of right here. It kind of looks like a line or like a tube, like, so this could be like a method of like drip irrigation, for example.
Pipe,
Pardon?
like a pipe that you can like get water from.
Right, so they have more advanced irrigation systems in place. Right. I think that was three. I think that was three just now. And also, of course, they tend to prioritize, as someone would have said earlier, monoculture. They tend to prioritize or put much focus into like planting or producing one crop, because it tends to be the crops that are being produced are usually for sale or for market, whether local markets or in most cases the export market, right? Okay, let's see. These are just definitions, so in the interest of time, right, I could always just send you guys these definitions, but because I want you guys to get a break, so I'm just gonna go and jump to this question here that asks to explain the benefits of two sustainable farming practices implemented by farmers in the Caribbean. Now, you have a whole bunch of sustainable farming practices that you could talk about. Does anyone have any ideas as to what sustainable farming practices farmers are using or should be using?
Mrs. One, crop rotation.
Yes, crop rotation. Can you talk a little bit about the benefits of crop rotation?
Miss, as they, instead of planting one type of crop, they switch around. So some years they plant different types of crops, and it allows for the nutrients in the soil to not be used up as different
Mm-hmm.
plants.
Right, yeah.
So as different plants, they use different nutrients. So if only one crop is planted, then they'll use up all, all of one particular nutrient in the soil. But it also
Right.
gives the soil time to rest as well.
Right, so crop rotation, that's a very good explanation. So it helps with the cycling rather of nutrients throughout the soil. Does anyone have any other sustainable farming practices?
Misuse of pesticides.
Pardon?
Misuse of pesticides.
As a sustainable farming practice?
Means like they can use it to like ward off like animals that eat their stuff.
Right. So you do have a lot of farmers that use fertilizers and pesticides, right? But for this particular question, because it's asking more so for sustainable farming practices, and what we mean by sustainable is implementing techniques and procedures that have a minimal effect on the environment, right? So you can have cases where, fertilizers, especially chemical fertilizers, tend to have a negative effect on the environment because they can, they can infiltrate the soil, they can get into, groundwater reserves, right? Contaminating them. They sometimes, in events of heavy rainfall, they can, be washed into rivers, contaminating them. So we wouldn't want to look towards the use of chemical fertilizers. But what we can look towards is the use of natural fertilizers such as manure, right? So that also helps with, adding nutrients and of course encouraging, like the presence of biological organisms, right? And So that you could look at that as well. What about intercropping? Does anyone know what intercropping is?
This is it when you have two types of crops are grown, and basically you have rows of alternating crops. So like one will be after that one is harvested, it will add a certain nutrient to the soil and it can be plowed into the soil after, like if that's stem cuttings remaining in the soil. And then for the other crop that would also be able to benefit because of that crop that was grown.
Okay, right. And another benefits of intercropping could be that, you know, again with the nutrients, right? So nutrients are it helps to, you know, add nutrients to the soil and help with the, you know, cycling of nutrients throughout the soil. You could talk about the fact that it makes, you know, it helps to also reduce the need of chemical fertilizers and possibly pesticides, because you could plant certain crops that, you know, help to, how do I put this? You have certain crops that certain pests won't come near, you know, so it helps with pest management in that regard, because some plants tend to act as, you know, repelling. They tend to repel certain types of pests and stuff like that. Also, we spoke about, again, soil fertility. It helps to, you know, contribute in that regard. We could even talk about mulching. Mulching is another sustainable farming practice that also helps. Again, it adds nutrients to the soil, right? And it also, the benefit of it is that it helps to retain soil moisture, right? So it kind of prevents the soil from becoming too dried out, right? And helps to, you know, preserve the moisture content within the soil so that plants, you know, are able to survive. We could also talk about reducing or completely eliminating slash and burn, right? So that's also a method of that's also a sustainable, you know, farming practice, removing, completely eliminating slash and burn, right? That's also another one. And of course, the benefits of that would be, you know, that you're reducing, you know, the carbon emissions, right? You're not completely like, you're reducing the potential of, you know, a fire getting out of hand, like things like those. And then the last question on this paper would be to discuss two negative impacts that human activities have on tropical rainforests in a named CARICOM country. Not sure if anyone approached this question, but does anyone have any ideas?
I'm not sure about the name card from
Miss, I'm
country.
guessing England.
Okay, I think Videsh was trying to say something just now. So Videsh, you could go first and then we come to, I think it was Zayanara who was saying something.
Alright, well, I'm not sure about the name
Yes, miss.
CARICOM country, the name CARICOM country, but burning fossil fuels could have a negative impact, right?
Pardon?
Burning fossil fuels.
Okay, right, but which country?
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure about that one. What about Singapore?
CARICOM.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the CARICOM.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay, so you could just choose any CARICOM country really, because you do kind of, okay, someone said Guyana. thing with Guyana tends to prioritize protecting their tropical rainforests, though. So that's something very important to note as well. Zainar, you could go ahead.
So maybe in Barbados, when they chop down the trees, it destroys the animals' habitats.
Okay, right. So habitat destruction, right? Okay, not sure if anyone, right. Rodney said deforestation. So right. So basically deforestation, you could possibly look at you could look if you're looking at Haiti, for example, right? They I believe it was palm oil, right? They tend to cut down a lot of the trees, right, to harvest that. So deforestation is definitely an issue, right? As well as you could look at the logging industry, right? Logging industries tend to require the removal of trees. So that's again is deforestation.
Miss, could you repeat which country that was?
Okay, so for the palm oil, I'm not sure if Tisheika is hearing me. Tisheika, you here?
Yeah, I'm here. The country was Haiti.
Right, yes. So Haiti for the palm oil, right? And of course, again, with Haiti, you had persons clearing land again for shifting cultivations in subsistence farming, subsistence small scale agriculture, right? So people who would live, closest to those regions, they cut down also the trees to plant crops, right? So if you're using Haiti, you could talk about that. So the deforestation, right? And also the effects on habitats, right? Someone would have mentioned that earlier, habitat loss, right? That's also a negative impact on tropical rainforest because now you're affecting the presence of species, right? Of particular species, right? And them losing their habitats also mean that you're not putting them at risk of, becoming endangered or, of course, they might not be able to survive in another environment. So, right. So yes, decline in biodiversity. Right, yes, Videsh. Decline in biodiversity reduction. So, and that's linked to habitat loss, right? Because now you're sending, so now you're especially for like, um, you know, those type of organisms that use trees for, or maybe not trees, but more so like, those organisms that rely heavily on camouflage, their camouflage effects to protect them from predators, right? So, and also it could cause land degradation, right? So deforestation again can lead further into land degradation because now you're removing the trees that would keep or the vegetation that would keep the soil together. So now when there's heavy rainfall, there's nothing really holding the soil together. So it's now more susceptible to erosion, right? You're removing away, vital topsoil layers that are useful for, because of that are useful for their high nutrient content. So plants that are relying on, these nutrients would basically be at a loss. And also we could talk about the organisms that live in the soil as well, right? How would they be impacted when, there's this removal of the soil layers? Right. So two negative impacts we basically talk about is deforestation as a result of, economic activities, right? Logging, logging. I'll double check the country for those who might want to use the logging industry because I don't think I jot that one down, but that's an industry that tends to require, the removal of trees. I'll get back to you guys with that one. But yeah. So we basically come to the end of this paper here, 2023. I would like to, so you guys can have, we're gonna go into our break now. So I went a little bit over the time that I was expecting, so I'll give you guys a 20-minute break. And when we return from the break, we're gonna have Tisheika, who's gonna go through the 2022 paper, right? And then depending on the time, we'll decide if we're gonna do another paper or we'll just go straight into the map work aspect. So it is now 7:33. So we could, all right, let's make it return for 7:55. So we can come back at 7:55. And in the meantime, you guys can, of course, keep the chat active. You can send questions. We'll still be here. Send questions to the chat and we'll try our best to respond. So all right, so good night again, Sparks. I'm Tisheika Thompson, and I'll be leading the second half of the session. And here we'll be tackling the Geography Paper 2, 2022 paper. And as said before, we'll be skipping over the map work section, and I'll be focusing on the physical and the human systems aspect of the paper. So I'll start with question number 2, and this question asks us to identify a few coastal features. And we have a diagram right here. And would someone like to try to identify the features? And as you identify them, can you also tell me how they are formed? Abigail, would you like to go ahead and try to answer this question for us?
So I know how the names of them, but I don't remember how they're formed.
Oh, all right, you can just give us the name in the meantime.
So D is the beach, A is the cave, C is the stump, I think,
Yes.
and B is the arc.
All right. Yeah, you have them correct, yes.
C is stuck.
Excuse me, miss.
Is someone trying to say something?
Yeah, I
Yes,
say
miss.
C.
I was asking if stack and stump are the same thing. So if you say either of them in the exam, you'll get it right.
No, so a stack would have been stack is eroded by wave action, we get the resultant stump. So they're two completely different features.
Okay, miss. Thank you.
All right, so would anyone like to try to tell us how they think each feature was formed, starting with the cave at A?
Miss, could A be formed by wave action just constantly hitting at the rock?
Yeah, you're correct. Yeah, it was formed by wave action. So as the waves smash into the coastline, they erode the base of the rocks, and over time it will result in the formation of caves. And further erosion of a cave, what do you think that will lead to? If either side
A stack.
of this cave, we're not quite at the stack as yet.
Yeah. Arch.
We can repeat.
you just say arc?
Miss, I'm not sure what I think an arc.
Yeah, you're correct, man. Have confidence. So it will result in the formation of an arc. And as you can see in our, all right, and as we can see in our arc over here, which is just the cave eroding over time, if there's a collapse of this overhead parts right here, we will get, what feature do you think we'll get?
Miss, would it be a cavern?
Not quite.
A pillar?
Another word for a pillar.
Column.
A
Headland.
word?
Miss, wouldn't that be a stack though?
A stack, yes, you'll get a stack. And what happens when the stack erodes over time?
You get a stump.
You get a stump that you see at sea. See there? Yeah, hey, you know, we're not top boy, yes. So
Oh, and I understand. I understand now because I thought C was a stack.
yeah, there may be I can see where you say that, you know, because of the way how they drew the diagram. But if you try to line up what, all right, so I'll try to line up everything right. And as you can see, it is much smaller than the actual feature that we have here, right? So you can see where it was eroded from the stack.
Oh, so it is a stump.
Yes, so it's a stump. But if it were much larger, going up to here, you could then say it was a stack.
Okay, I understand.
All right, great. So I'll now move on to part 2. And what feature do you think separates these two bays right here?
A headland.
A headland.
All right, headland. Yes, that's correct. All right, next question. We're asked right here to differentiate between the processes of weathering and erosion. Would someone like to tackle that question for us? What characteristic would you use to differentiate these two processes by?
The movement of the material.
Right. So the main difference would be the movement of the materials. And can you describe how each how movement happens or doesn't happen in either process?
In weathering, rocks are
Mhm.
broken down by the weather and climate, and in erosion, the topsoil is removed by weather.
All right. I'm not really looking for that type of erosion. Wait, yeah, I'm looking for that. But what other way could you put it, phrase it? You can go ahead, Ray.
You could say that the main difference between weathering and erosion is that weathering is just either the physical or chemical breakdown of certain rocks and of the topsoil, basically, while erosion is the removal of the weathered material down slope due to the influence of gravity.
Wait, could you repeat your answer for me, please?
I said that the main difference between weathering and erosion is that weathering is the breaking down of the rocks and the material on the topsoil, while erosion would be the removal of the weathered material downslope due to the influence of gravity.
All right, that's correct. But what word would you put on weathering to really differentiate it from erosion? Because you said that you made mention of there being movement of sediment downslope, right? Removal from its original place, right? So what word would you put on weathering to differentiate it from the movement that occurs when material is eroded? So say what you were saying for weathering again.
Weathering is the breaking down of rocks and the materials on the topsoil.
Yeah, and what happens to that material when it's broken down? Is it removed? Does it stay in its original place?
It's transported.
Not quite. Would you like to go again?
It remains.
You're right, it remains in its original place, correct. All right, so when there's usually a question about weathering and erosion and CXC, which I think happens quite often, they usually want, when they say outline the difference between, they usually want you to make reference to the movement that occurs or does not occur with each process. So for weathering, it occurs either physically, chemically, or biologically, and material that is broken down, it is not moved from its original place. And the word that I'm sure some of you would have come across would be in situ. It is not moved from its original place, it remains where it is. However, sediment that is broken down by erosive processes or erosion, these materials are usually removed and transported elsewhere. And as was said before, usually carried, if eroded from a cliff face or where, it would have been carried down slope, right? So try to remember that word removed from its original place for erosion and for whether it stays within, it stays where the weathering processes occur, so in situ. So, does everyone understand that difference?
Miss, I don't really understand it.
No,
If you put a definition for both,
what part don't you understand?
Miss, what does in situ mean?
It means in its original place, so it doesn't move.
So the weathered rock doesn't move?
No, it doesn't. Sir, tell me the name of a weathering process that you know.
Hydraulic action?
All right, so for hydraulic action, what happens in hydraulic action?
Miss, I can't remember. It just came to my head.
Oh, all right, so you see for hydraulic action, we have rainwater interacting with minerals present in a rock, right? And the minerals are broken down into other forms, such as like you have your clays and your soluble salts. Those materials, they're just broken down within the rock and they aren't moved. However, for erosion, say you have something like hydraulic action that occurs along a coastline, right? Materials that are eroded by forces of water, they are usually moved, transported. They are usually carried away when they're eroded. Do you understand now?
So the outside of the rock would be unaffected, but the minerals inside will be broken down?
No, man, you'll oftentimes see a change in the rock, so the color, stuff like that. But the rock is broken down, but the main difference would be that it's not transported away from its original place.
Oh, okay, Miss. I think I understand now.
All right. You can go ahead, Radish. Radish.
if you put a definition of both of them, it would have been correct. Or
Wait, can you repeat, please?
if you put the definitions for both of them,
Mm-hmm.
if that would have been correct as a difference.
Well, if you do outline something that if you do include like actual different, not just giving the definition, but actually outlining something that makes them different. So as I said before, removal of the sediments from the original place or them staying within where they were actually weathered, you'll get your 4 marks.
Yes,
Yeah, you can go ahead.
miss, something was sent in the chat, miss. I wanted to clarify something. Well,
Wait,
somebody sent it in the chat.
let me see what they said. No, man, I think you heard wrong. I asked her to tell me about an erosive process. And then she gave hydraulic action. And then I said, all right. I defined it for her. But you're correct, hydraulic action is indeed an erosive process. All right, so I'll move on to part 2 now, and
we're being asked to describe two processes by which wave action occurs along coastline. And we would have already spoken about hydraulic action before. Would anyone like to give another example? You can go ahead. Christina? Christina, yeah.
Yeah. Another process is solution when the water dissolves rocks and minerals, and then abrasion.
Yeah.
The pebbles rain along the riverbank.
Yeah.
The bed in a like with small pebbles or the small material.
Wait, can you repeat that last part for me, please?
Right, I was saying that abrasion is when pebbles grind along the riverbank.
You're right.
Bed against the coastline, wearing over time.
Yeah, you're correct. Yeah, thank you for your response. Would anyone like to give me another process? Can anyone think of anything? You can go ahead, Reef.
You have one, you have attrition, and attrition is when, attrition is when the rocks and the small particles in the water are hitting against each other and they break each other up. So there's like all the shear force of the water, they're hitting and smashing against each other, which eventually they erode each other because they're hitting against each other.
You're right, correct. And would anyone like to describe the process of hydraulic action? Yeah, you can
Is the
hydraulic action is when the force of the water disturbs and carries materials away.
Yes, but what are you missing? Water does hit the rock, yes, and materials are carried away, but what happens?
The rocks break apart and erode.
No, you're still missing something.
There's something.
Would anyone like to give it a try? I'm not seeing who raised their hand, but you can go ahead.
The sheer force of water crashing against the coastline and the sludgy materials, and it carries out the materials to the sea.
All right, that's quite similar to what was said before. But what happens, we do have the waves crashing into the coastline, right? And materials are carried away. But when we talk about hydraulic action, it is the action of the waves combined with the high pressure that forces air into the cracks of the rocks. And in doing so, the rocks are stressed out and they break apart and are carried away by the waves. And over time, we see that, yes, the coastline is being eroded. Does everyone get that? You want me to go over that definition again?
Yes, please.
All right, so we have a coastline, right? Say a headland. And we have very destructive waves crashing into the headland. And when this water crashes into the headland at high force, we have water entering into the cracks of the rocks, right? And when water is pushed into the cracks of the rocks, air is also pushed into the cracks as well. And when air is pushed in, we have a buildup of pressure, within the rocks, and this forces the rocks to break apart because, you know, high pressure is being created, the rocks are being, you know, forced apart, and they eventually break. Is that any better? Hello, are you hearing me?
Yes, please.
Yeah, is that any better?
Yes, please. That's fine.
All right. So we have hydraulic action, we've spoken about abrasion, attrition, and solution. And we're going to now go into a section that's asked us about weathering. And we're being asked to explain the process of freeze action or freeze thaw. Would anyone like to attempt this question? You can go ahead, Christiana.
So freeze action is during the day, the water seeps into the cracks of the rock. At night, temperature drops below the freezing point.
Right.
Water freezes and expands the rock by 9%, putting pressure on the rock. And then this process is repeated and continues over time, widening the cracks, causing it to weaken, eventually breaking off.
Yeah, lovely explanation, Christiana. I really like that one.
Thank you.
All right, so I think that was well explained, yes. So we'll move on to hydrolysis. And I did explain this briefly before. Would anyone like to try to see they remember what I was saying before, or what I said before? For hydrolysis.
It's the chemical reaction between hydrogen in the soil with water or rain and inserted minerals in rocks like granite, something like that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you're correct. Yeah, so it's practically just water weathering the minerals within the rock and breaking it down to other compounds. Yes, yeah, thank you so much for that definition. All right, so
Miss, can you repeat that definition?
all right, so water, I was said before, water weathering the soil in the atmosphere, it comes into contact with the minerals within the rocks, and over time, it breaks down the minerals, turning them into other type of minerals. So like you have them turning to clay, salts, as said before, because of the acidic reaction that is created.
Okay, Miss, thank you.
Hello? Is someone saying something?
Miss, I was just saying thank you.
Oh yeah, yes, of course. All right, this is a 6-mark question, and we're asked to explain how rock hardness and wave refraction result in the formation of bays and headlands. Would anyone like to attempt this one for me? So how does rock hardness and wave refraction result in the formation of bays and headlands? Anyone?
Miss, I know for the rock hardness, they have rocks which they describe as soft and rocks which they describe as hard. And basically the soft rocks, when the waves hit against the soft rocks, they break up easier. And
Right.
so they may have hard rock on top of them. So the soft rock at the bottom keeps getting broken up. So it kind of keeps eating into the rock. So the top of it will stay at the original position where it was, and the bottom would make it smaller. So the base is smaller than the top.
All right, so yeah, that can happen, yes, but in the context of the question, we're asked about bays and headlands. So Your definition is correct, yes. Your explanation is correct, yes. As relates to what would happen, but if you're trying to explain to someone how does wave refraction plus the hardness of rocks, differential hardness of rocks, result in the formation of bays and headlands. You were correct on the actual soft rocks being eroded quicker at a higher rate than harder rocks. But how would that translate into the formation of headland and bays? If you were to remove, when you were saying the rocks are stacked on each other, so you have hard rock and soft rock, the soft rock at the base is eroded at a faster rate. If you were to remove that with something else to make it suit the formation of bays and headlands, what would you put? Would you like to give it another go?
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have the land that is there, and then you have the waves, the constant pressure of the waves hitting against the rocks would cause the rocks to wear away. And because that would be the part of the rock that's in the water, that part would be affected, whereas the other parts which are not being not getting any of the water acting on it, so they would still be intact because they're not getting any of the wave action. And so it'll be the soft rock that's being worn away. And then because of that, it could, after constant pressure on it and so on, it could form holes in the rock. And so as they get bigger because of the wave action, they could form the headlands. I'm not sure about the base, but I think that would be it for the headlands.
All right. You kind of missed you kind of spoke more so about what happens after they're formed and not the actual formation. I think Abigail was raising her hand before. Would you like to go ahead?
No, miss, I was going to mention how that the waves beat on the soft rock repeatedly until the hard rocks are left behind. But someone already mentioned it in the chat. So
Oh, someone did? Well, let me see. Right. All right, so Ronnie said she must mention at first it is a physical weathering process. Feldspar mineral and rocks turn to clay. Or the soft rock erosion leads to formation of the bay, which is an indentation of the coastline, and the hard rock remains. All right, so yeah, Ronnie did actually kind of explain the process in the chat. So, all right, so I'm going to draw some right here now. Right? This right here is our coast, is our stretch of land, right? The parts I've shaded in red, those parts are made of soft rock, right? And the parts that I've left unshaded are made of hard rocks. So when we have wave refraction occurring as the waves approach the coastline, there is what we see are all right, so as wave refraction happens when the wave approach the coastline, we have what we call a decrease in the height from the base of the wave and the bottom of the seabed. Sorry about that. So we have a decrease that happens between the base of the wave and the seabed, and that causes the waves to plunge into the coastline, right? And when this wave plunges into the hard rock, you'll find that, oh, this isn't being eroded as fast as when it's being as when it crashes into the soft rock, because the harder rock is made up of more resistant material, and compared to the soft rock, not so resistant. So like some type of limestone, chalky material, while for your more resistant rock, you'll find such rocks like probably granite, basalt rocks. So for your non-resistant rocks, we find that these will occur whether at a slower rate when compared to your soft rock, and we'll see a very noticeable retreat happening in our soft rock, which will result in the formation of our bays. And over time, as you know, wave action wave is refracted, wave comes into the waves attack the coastline, we'll see that our headlands that are now exposed will be weathered at a more faster rate than our bays are being eroded, because as waves come in and they're dissipated, materials are just being deposited within our bays instead of being eroded. I think I should explain that again. That was very confusing. Should I go over that again for you guys?
Yes,
please.
Yeah, I think that diagram was a bit confusing.
Excuse me.
All right.
That's a question.
Yeah, you can go ahead.
So if I said that as the soft rock retreats, the hard rock will experience greater wave action through wave refraction, and then I also mentioned that the soft rock will erode faster, leaving the hard rock further out into the sea. And the wave refraction occurs when the incoming waves mirror the shape of the coastline, which means more energy would be used on the headland. Would that work?
Yeah, that would work, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that would work.
Thank you.
Did everyone understand that explanation a while ago? Should I go over it again?
Yes, please.
All right. So, as I said before, when we have wave refraction is the process by which the waves, they change direction as they approach the coastline, right? So when I drew the diagram before, and I was showing the alternating hard and soft rock, I was saying before, as the waves approach the coastline, the harder rock will be eroded. The soft rock eroded at a faster rate compared to hard. This erosion, the soft rock will result in that indentation that was mentioned before, or your formation of bays, while harder rock will protrude and result in the formation of headlands. You can also mention again about wave refraction. So now, after these features have been formed, and you have your waves coming into your coastline area, and you see that as the waves approach and the water gets shallow as they approach the coastline, especially within bays, you see that instead of attacking the bays at high energy, the way it dissipates and will be allowed to be cut after it's been deposited. However, it's a different story for headlands, whereby the ones they normally just attack it straight on, resulting in their erosion. Is that any better?
Yes, miss.
All right. If anything, I'll go back to this question again afterwards. All right. So this one is
excuse me.
Yeah, you go ahead. Yes.
Where will this recording be posted, or how will it be available?
Wait, can you repeat?
How will this recording be posted, or how will we will be able to access it?
Yeah, I think it should be posted. Yes. I'll scan relay the information to you afterwards.
Okay.
All right. So we're now entering into the human system section. This is a very simple one, and we're going to use a graph, as you'll see that they normally do. And this graph, it shows the source of the world's energy. And we're asked to see what percentage of the global energy comes from hydro. Would you like to answer that?
2%.
Yes, 2%. And quick next question, state the source is the greatest contributor to the world's energy.
Oil.
Oil, correct. And name the energy source that accounts for 6% of the global energy.
Nuclear.
Nuclear energy.
Your nuclear, correct. For the last one, this one is worth 2 marks. Sorry about this. And we're asked to calculate the percentage of the world's energy that comes from coal. How do you think we'll go doing that?
So, yeah, add the 33%, the 21, the 6, the 2%, and the 11%, and that will give it 73. Then, you know, there's a percentage is marked out of 100. So, I subtracted 73 from 100 and I got 27. So, the percentage of that comes from coal would be 27.
Yes, correct. Quick maths, yes, 27%. And remember to always include your signs. So don't just write 27. Remember to put your percentage sign, or else you lose a mark. All right, so the next question. Differentiate between primary and tertiary economic activities. Who would like to attempt this one for me? Primary and tertiary economic activities.
Primary economic activities is where raw materials are extracted from the earth, while tertiary economic activities is where services are provided, for example, call centers.
Yeah, Christiane, would you like to go ahead?
I was just going to say that, yeah, primary economic activities deal with the raw materials extracted from the earth. Forestry, oil extraction, bauxite extraction. Whereas with tertiary economic activities, it deals with services like healthcare, educational services.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and guys, thank you guys. You are both correct. And please remember, when you're asked to define, when you're asked to differentiate, when you're asked to explain, give examples, because it tells the marker that you understand and you know how to apply the definition. So as was said before, primary would be like bauxite mining. For tertiary, healthcare services, education. So like, please ensure that you put examples when you're giving your definitions or you're trying to differentiate between terms. And can someone name 2 extractive industries found in the Caribbean? Some were mentioned before.
Bauxite.
Yeah,
Bauxite.
bauxite. Yeah.
Oh.
And can you give another one?
Oil.
Oil, correct. And for each, can you tell me what country they're found in? Or
Bauxite is found in Jamaica, and I think oil is found in Trinidad.
Trinidad, correct. Right. All right. And we're still on industries, and we're asked to state 2 benefits that can be derived from the development of manufacturing sector in Caribbean countries. And you will have learned a lot about the manufacturing industry. So giving an example, it doesn't ask to give an example, but I want you to give an example. Can someone give an example and tell me what benefit they'll think this will have on Caribbean countries?
Yes.
Yes.
Can it help with like job opportunities? So like people can be like employed to like like do this stuff so that the things or goods can be manufactured.
Right. Yes. So the manufacturing sector does provide employment both directly and indirectly. So it does help sustain the livelihoods of many of our Caribbean nationals. So like we have people working directly producing tin products, producing pickles and stuff like that within the factories. And we also have our farmers who also are able to make cash because of a manufacturing industry that is present within some of our Caribbean countries. Thank you for that. Would anyone like to give another example apart from, yes, Christiana?
Another benefit is that it contributes to economic growth. So when the manufacturing sector expands, it it generates revenue like money, and it attracts investments, and it boosts exports so that this overall economic growth can lead to development in various sectors of the economy.
You're right. Thank you. So we have employment opportunities and we have a growth of the economies of countries within the Caribbean. Can anyone else think of any other benefit that it may have?
Miss would like easy access to ports, so like it could be like exported to other countries.
Not necessarily as a benefit, but that does happen. Yes, it does. But I would count that under the point that was mentioned up before about it having economic benefits. So when the products are exported, they generate money from exports for the Caribbean country. So you're correct. Would anyone else like to try to think of one more benefit? So we have employment, we have GDP earner, or economic benefits. Anything else? All right, so let me check in the chat. Okay, so to speed this up, we could probably say money earned, especially from, yes, Christiana?
Can it also boost technological progress?
Boost, repeat please?
Yeah, can it also boost the technological progress in the economy? Right, that would not be a strong point.
Probably not a strong one, but it can, especially when we have companies within the manufacturing sector, industry wanting to import different technologies to run their plants or factories. So
Right.
like bottling, new innovative bottling machines coming in to a country does improve their technological development. Yeah, that's a really good point.
Can you also say the competitiveness of the job market?
In what sense?
I mean, with that same point. So it leads to overall technological growth and and competitive in the global market.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, that's a good point. All right. You could also probably mention minor points, but money earned can be used to redevelop countries, not redevelop, but develop countries. So say, for example, money earned from GDP can be used to aid in building of hospitals, the building of schools, especially from tax collected. We also have produce being available within the country that aids in food security. So especially for seasonal products, they can be pickled, they can be bottled, and people will be able to have these products for a longer time. All right, so we did speak about good points for this one. We're almost finished, and now we're asked to explain two challenges that have prevented the setting up of either aluminum smelters or oil drilling in the Caribbean region. And we'll be doing both. So we'll start with aluminum. Would anyone like to attack that one first? What would you say is a challenge for the aluminum industry for setting up aluminum smelters in the Caribbean?
It's like larger land space.
Larger land space. I wouldn't. I would pair that with something else. What would you pair that with?
I mean, we could use like the machines or like the technology that was used to like develop these things.
Right. So a lack of the technology needed to a lack of the technology that is needed to actually mine aluminum is not really present within the Caribbean. Christiana, you can go ahead.
Can I also say that setting up aluminum smelters, it poses challenges like environmental concerns. So, it requires, not requires, it produces greenhouse gases like dioxide, and this obviously disrupts the overall balance of the atmosphere, and it raises environmental issues.
Yeah, right. That's a good one. Especially, and it will be even better if you're able to tie an example, a real life example into it. So, I think we should all know about the Cockpit country in Jamaica, where there was this whole no mining in the Cockpit country thing going on, where different environmental organizations, they were trying to stop the government from mining in the Cockpit country. And now they can't mine within a specific region within that Cockpit country, even though aluminum bauxite is found within that area. So environmental concerns is one challenge that they may have that may prevent the setup for these smelters. Would anyone like to provide another example?
I know that for the bauxite industry, in terms of extracting the bauxite, it requires, like the machinery that they use requires a lot of electricity, which some Caribbean countries may not be able to provide the adequate amount of electricity, which would be speaking to their infrastructure, where the government would be providing the necessary service like electricity. So not having enough electricity to run the machinery would be one probably.
You're right, well explained. Yeah, that's a good one. Would anyone like to give another one? There's so many points for this one. What else can you say? I'll just take one more. Would anyone like to give it a try? Yeah, you can go again, Christina.
This is based on aluminum, right?
We're still on aluminum.
Okay. Can you also say that setting up aluminum smelters requires large amounts of electricity? So there's a need for a lot of electricity, and this demand can be costly or expensive, can be expensive, and it increases the operational costs.
Yeah, that's one reason that was said before though by another student, but that's one.
Oh,
all right. Before I move on, I'll provide one. So a challenge would be the presence of raw materials. So these resources, they're finite and they're only found in specific regions of, especially in Jamaica, they're only found in specific regions. Also, we find that it may be very difficult, even if they are to set up the smelters, it may be really difficult for them to compete with other larger countries with larger bauxite deposits. So like, I think China and Australia, they have a bigger bauxite industry when compared to Jamaica. So it may it won't be profitable if they actually set it up over here, right? And speaking of where it is found in Jamaica, when going into the exam, I want you all I hope that you all know how to draw a map of Jamaica by now from memory, or any other Caribbean island. So like just learn how to draw a Caribbean island and some sort of industry that is found. Like I've seen it on past papers where they've asked to draw the location of bauxite or oil within a Caribbean country. So when you have time, you can probably try, searching up an image, looking through your textbooks and see if you can, practice sketching the maps and stuff. Also, try to know the locations of the different Caribbean islands relative to each other in the Caribbean. So know where Jamaica is, know where Trinidad is, know where Haiti is, because you may be asked to label these on a map. All right, moving on. All right, so drilling. Would anyone like to provide me? I'll take 2 points for this one. Why is it challenging to do practice oil drilling in the Caribbean?
Miss, can lack of finance be one?
A lack of finance. Anything else?
So what was the question?
The challenge of setting up oil drilling in the Caribbean. So limited financial resources were just mentioned. What other point would you put here? You can go ahead, Christiana.
I was gonna say that it poses environmental risk, like the potential
For oil spills?
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, oil spills. It can also cause for habitat destruction and lead to water contamination.
That may be a challenge, especially if issues are being raised by environmental organizations. May advocate for them not to be set up. Who is someone trying to say something?
Yeah,
Like
could the rock types in the Caribbean be one?
rock type, rock
Like it could be
types. Yeah,
difficult to drill through.
it may be difficult for them to let me see rock types. Yeah, I've heard where rock type have actually prevented exploration or drilling of oil that they think a country may have. So that may be one, yes. So rock type posing a physical challenge, putting a physical barrier between them, not being able to access the resource. All right, but I wouldn't put that as one of my first choices. You understand? So like before you put that, try to think of something else, right? But if you are able to explain it, you can put it.
Miss, what land space work?
Repeat, please.
Miss, what land space work?
Lines. Wait, I'm not hearing you.
Land space.
Line space?
No, Miss, land.
Land space?
Yes.
So like all deposits not being plentiful.
Yes, Miss, you could have it like that, or probably like the place that they're setting up to drill doesn't have the amount or the what you call it, amount of land for that to happen, or the quality.
Yeah, because a country was undergo a country or organization, they won't undergo any oil drilling, or it isn't profitable for them to undergo oil drilling if they don't have enough reserves. They won't make enough money from it, and they'll have much more losses than they'll do have gains. So yeah, that's the point. So we have environmental issues, we have the expenses that it will cost for these developing states, and we have finite oil reserves. All right, so, and as long as you explain your points well, and you're able to like give examples, probably try to relate it to a Caribbean country, you will get your 6 marks, trust. All right, so we're moving on fast to question 4, and we're given a table that shows information about coral reefs in the Caribbean, and then we're asked to answer a series of questions based on the data that is provided in the table. So we're asked, which country has the largest area of coral reefs?
The Bahamas.
The Bahamas, correct. And state the area of the coral reefs that is found in Belize.
1,420.
Yeah, 1,420 is correct. And what country has the highest percent of reef that is at high risk for destruction or degradation?
Barbados.
Barbados, yes. And which country has approximately half of its reef at high risk? Is someone answering that question?
Antigua
Right.
and Barbuda.
Antigua and Barbuda, 5 out of 5 people. So moving on, we're asked to describe 2 conditions that are necessary for the successful formation of coral reefs within the Caribbean. So we have multiple conditions that need to be met, but you're asked to only explain 2. What 2 would you put down right here?
Clear water.
Clear waters.
And
Yeah.
salinity.
Yes, that's that. Yeah, clear waters and clear clean waters. Anything else?
We say salinity as well.
Yes, salinity.
Clean oxygenated water.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they have temperature.
Yeah, temperature. Yeah, what else? Christiana, are you raising your hand? You can go ahead.
Shallow waters.
Yes, shallow water is needed. And would someone like to explain their point? Because we can't just put shallow water on the paper. Would someone like to explain their point, describe the condition that you gave us?
I can explain the shallow waters.
Yeah.
This is so that the sunlight can penetrate on the coral reef in order for marine life to in order for the coral reef to be healthy, I don't know. That's a good word, but I don't know.
Yeah, for them to be healthy and thrive, because like plants, corals are photosynthesizing organisms, so they require sunlight to grow. So without sunlight, they'll die. So like shallow waters, yes. Yeah, you explain that point well. Would anyone like to explain their point? Someone who has spoken as it.
Miss,
You can go ahead.
Miss, so we know that coral reefs are underground ecosystems, right? That are important to natural ecosystems. So it is important that they are exposed to rich oxygenated water that is clear. It is not filled with silt or muddy water that would smother the coral reefs. So it should be exposed to this rich oxygenated water, and what it should be no deeper than I think 45 meters, 45 something. I don't remember the exact thing, but 45 something like that. So would that be okay?
Yeah, that would be okay. That would be okay, yes. Good explanation. Would anyone like to, I'm taking one more point, one more description. So what other point would you put down on your paper if you got this exam next week and they asked you to describe conditions needed for coral to thrive? One more point.
A source of food.
A source of food. Someone did say sunlight before.
They feed on algae, right?
With corals?
Coral polyps.
Coral polyps. No, coral polyps require sunlight, but the polyps eat algae. Polyps eat algae. Polyps require algae.
Isn't the temperature?
Temperature, yeah, you can use temperatures. Or would you like to explain that point?
I can't remember the exact temperature. I think it's 25 heads, 25 degrees.
Yeah.
Then if it's too hot, then can't grow there. And if the temperature is very low, it can cause it's too cold. So that's why it need to be 25 degrees Celsius at least. 27.
All right, so they need an optimal temperature. They need clear water that is oxygenated. And what other point was mentioned? At a perfect depth to receive the sunlight. Right. All right, so we do have more than two right there. So if I ask this question, you should be able to describe them extensively. All right, so Andor asks now to outline 2 ways in which mangrove wetlands are important to coastal communities.
Ways for protecting the coastline.
They protect the coastline?
Yes. Miss,
Yeah.
like mean like
You can go ahead. Were you saying something before?
It's because the person said to protect the coastline. I was going to say protection of the coastline from storm surges. Where when the storm surges come in contact with the mangrove wetland, the energy is reduced.
Yeah.
So it protects it from those surges.
Yeah, that's a good point. In a good way, erosion protects communities. Christiane, would you like to give us a point?
Yes, please. Mangroves provide home habitats for a wide variety of plant and animal species, including fish, birds, and other animals. And they also support local fisheries.
Yeah, they do. So we have two excellent points there. We are protecting the coastline against storm surges, dangerous storm surges, and sustaining the livelihood of our fishermen because they act as nurseries for fishes. All right, so moving on, we're at part C now, and we're given a scenario for the cruise ship industry. And they say that the cruise ship industry is one of the most important sectors of tourism within the Caribbean. And we're asked to discuss two possible negative effects of the cruise ship industry on the natural environment. And this is worth 6 marks. So what would you put down now for this? What negative impact would the cruise industry have on our natural environment within the Caribbean?
The anchors could damage the coral reefs.
Yeah, they would. They would. Any other point?
Miss water pollution.
Yeah, water pollution.
Miss, like when the release oils in the ocean or sea,
yeah, they
like
do
can damage other animals that are living there, and also it can affect them because the water is unclean.
Right. Would anyone like to give us another point?
Miss would threat to the natural ecosystems be a point?
Repeat, please.
Threat to natural ecosystems, so like the coral reefs and other underground ecosystem. Would that be a negative?
Yeah, but it would. That was touched on before, yes, but it would. Would anyone like to give us another point before we move on? Yes, Christiana.
I know that pollution was there before, but can you also say that effect of the industry pollution?
Wait.
Pardon?
No, you can you repeat that, please? I'm not hearing you.
Sorry. Can I know pollution was said, but more specifically air pollution, because cruise ships use they use fuel oil.
Yes.
This emits like pollutants to the atmosphere, which pollute the atmosphere. So it contributes to like the overall poor quality of air, and it can cause climate change. Well, not that, but it can also cause acidic rain.
It does. All right. Thank you so much for your points, guys. They're all excellent. And wait, let me see. Oh, the last question. Almost done. And for the last question, we're asked to discuss 2 measures that have been implemented by the government in the Caribbean to ensure the sustainable management of our fish resources. So what has the Caribbean government been doing?
Miss, they can they can put a law that limits the amount of fish the fishers can collect or catch.
Yeah, they do. And in doing so, they would probably put in place no fish seasons. They'll have periods in which you can't say fish for parrotfish. and they'll put in place heavy fines. Heavy fines. So if you catch, say catch I'll say a young fish, you catch a fish that isn't quite developed, you'll be fined jail time or fine, money fine. So yeah, that's a point. Would anyone like to provide another point for us? Yeah, thank you for that point. Would anyone like to give another way in which the government has sustainably managed the environment through their policies, actions, strategies, the measures that they've been carrying out? Someone who hasn't spoken since evening. I don't think Ronnie has spoken. Ronnie, would you like to give us a strategy? Ronnie RJ. All right, so Ronnie says in the chat, yeah, they have fishing seasons for specific fishes. Yes. I said quota on the maximum amount of fish. Yes. Was someone trying to say something?
Yes, they could ban the catching of young fish.
Yeah, right. And also, we see that we have governments working together with other, you would say, non-profit organizations, like those environmental organizations or international organizations, and they'll set up fish sanctuaries. So we have like our White River Fish Sanctuary in St. Anne, and we also have the Orocabessa Fish Sanctuary in border of St. Anne and St. Mary, where they've done much restoration of coral reefs to protect our fisheries resources. So that could be another strategy that they've been implementing. Christina, would you like to go ahead? Yeah, you can go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say that, well, I was gonna ask if another measure that the government ensure would be like establishing marine protected areas, so like areas to help conserve fish populations, and to protect critical habitat, and also by promoting sustainable fishing practices. Yeah.
All right, thank you for your points, guys. Jay, would you like to go ahead?
For the last question, a point that I had was they can set up protected areas to assist in the regeneration of the fish population. For
Right.
example, the marine parks and stuff like that.
Yeah, thank you for that point. Yes, they do. Another point. Would you like to give us another point? Or is that all?
They already said the rest, like the implementation of laws and policies and so on.
All right, so fines, patrols by marine officers, size of net, size of fish caught. They also which country? I think it's Belize, where, and possibly in Jamaica as well, where there are heavy fines on different fish practices. Yes, in Jamaica, where there are heavy fines, especially if you practice not so sustainable fishing practices like bombing. They usually do like poison attacks where they kill the fish by poison methods. Spearing fishes aren't allowed in some areas. So yeah, I think we have a good amount, yes. And I do hope that you'll be able to explain them if push comes to shove and you're asked to give another point. All right, and we're at the end of the paper. And that's it for 2022. Was there any question that anybody found difficult, or they still aren't able to like grasp? And you'd like me to quickly go over it before we move on? Or was everybody okay and satisfied? All right, I'll take that in the chat. All right, so that's good. I'll take that as a yes, yes. All right, Duvania, are you still with us? Duvania? All right, so while Duvania get would you guys do you want us to go through map?
Yes, I'm still here, Tishika.
Oh, you're here?
Yes, I am.
Alright, so
Sorry.
I'm finished. Yeah, that's okay. I'm finished with the 2022 paper. How would you like us to proceed? Do another past paper, or should we just jump into the map work?
Okay, so I'm thinking that the students could benefit from a well-needed break right now. So let's see in the chat. You guys would like a break? Okay. Yes, right. Okay, so we're gonna have another 20-minute break, or you guys would like a little bit more time, like maybe 30 minutes, 20, 25, 30 minutes of break. You just type it in the chat to let us know how long you guys would like. Okay, so okay, so good night again, everyone, and welcome back. We're resuming our session with CSEC Geography, Paper 2, Questions and Situations, and we'll be looking now at some map work situations, right? Because the structure of the paper, it tends to open with map work, and you're asked a variety of questions, relating to the map extracts. And of course, it's very useful to be able to have these map work skills and to, be able to identify features from the map and be able to provide the correct responses that we needed, right? So So is everyone seeing my screen?
Yes, miss.
Okay, great. All right, so I'll share the link to this website here in the chat so that you guys could navigate over there as well and have like a look at the maps, right? Now, please note that to find these maps, once you get to the link, you just click on any of the past papers that are present, right? And you scroll to the last page. So for this particular map extract that we're looking at, it's an extract of the Aguadilla in Puerto Rico, right? In Puerto Rico. So that's what we'll be looking at right now. This extract is found in the Unit 1, 2022 paper 2, right? That link. So it's the first link under the Unit 1. So if you'd like to look at the particular paper. All right. So don't be alarmed because you're seeing it's a paper, we're just using it, for the map extract. So Tisheika and I will basically be also taking, a team approach as we look at map work, right? So if we navigate to a past paper, because we're going to basically be using the principles, the guiding question principles that the questions normally have it as it relates to structure for map work, right? So normally when you see the map work section, you're asked to study the map extract, right? Of the whatever country or whatever area it is that they're showing. Now, most of the times you won't really know these locations in terms of, you won't have like a wide variety of knowledge in terms of these locations because these are normally locations that are pulled from across the Caribbean, right? Not everyone who will be sitting the exam is from Trinidad. Not everyone who's sitting the exam is from Jamaica. Not everyone, who's sitting the exam is from Guyana. So this allows CXC to really test, your level of competence when it comes to map work and skills, right? Because you're now asked to identify and talk about features on a particular map extract that you have no level of familiarity with. But at the end of the day, it's the skills that you would have picked up on as it relates to map work that allow you to effectively answer these questions, right? And these skills are what you use no matter the map that you're looking at. It could be anywhere in the world. These are the skills that you use. Now, just looking at the map extract that you're seeing here, we can already identify features of the map, right? We can see the grid lines, right? We can see our northings, right? We can see our northings. Sorry, I'm not sure if you guys are seeing my cursor. I'm not sure if you guys are seeing the cursor, but we can see our northings, right? Going up here, right? And of course, you can see our eastings, right? And of course, when you look at the bottom of the map extracts, let me zoom in a little, we can see our key, right? So starting from the left, right, you're seeing, different colors associated with like built up areas, forest areas, rivers, seeing, the scale. The scale is very highly relevant. It's highly relevant, especially if you're asked to, identify distances, right? Curve line distances, right? Or in some cases, straight line distances, right? Between particular areas. Of course, we see below the scale, it mentions the contour interval, right? So this is letting us know how much the contours are increasing or decreasing by, right? And we're also seeing here that it says dotted lines represent 1 meter contours, right? So these dotted lines, let me see if I can find, I'm not sure the zoom would be it's gonna be kind of a bit hard to zoom in, but for it to be saying here that dotted lines represent 1 meter contours, this would be in areas, right, where you're possibly either identifying extremely low land, right, or extremely low land, or in some areas it would be the contours are so spaced out that you might see like this one, like probably example of that could probably in these coastal areas here. Not sure if you guys can see it because the maps tend to be, the visual on the map. But the fact that you could be able to see like a 1 meter contour would mean that it'd be like very flat land, because in more highland or steep areas, you'd be seeing the contours would be very close. So no one would really be trying to identify 1 meter contours in a steep environment. You'd be looking at focusing at the, the larger contour intervals right there. And then also we see here to the right, at the bottom right, we're seeing road classifications, right? So we see that heavy duty roads are red lines. We're seeing medium duty with a mixture between what looks to be red and gray. We're seeing light duty, that's just gray. Unimproved dirt, that's just dotted lines, right? And an insular route is being shown as well, right? So we can identify a lot of these areas on the map just by looking at our key, right? So that's a very good thing to keep in mind as well, because you don't want to be asked to identify something on the map and then you don't know, where it is or whatever it is, and the key is there to make your identification of features a little bit easier. So Tisheika, not sure if you want to get started with the grid references, for example.
All right, so for grid reference,
just let me know which area of the map I should zoom into.
all right, so let me see. I'm looking. Yeah, you can go over the northwest side. Wait. Wait. Let me see. Yeah, zoom in over TAMARI in the Taramindo. Is that over that section? Yeah, so we can see. Yeah, so we'll be able to see. No, man. I want us to be able to see like the northerns and the easterns properly.
Oh yes, my
Yeah.
bad. Sorry.
Yeah, man.
Okay, you can see it now. Okay.
Yeah. All right. So, as it relates to grid references are just location points on a map, and they contain both eastings, and we see our eastings labeled here as E, as well as northings. And if you're at a point where you don't know how to actually plot a 6-figure or a 4-figure grid reference, I have a really helpful method that I have brought with me from high school, and it's still helping me now. So, all right, it would have been better on the bottom, but what I've learned is that, or what my teacher taught me in high school, was that when we're plotting 6-figure grid reference, 4-figure grid reference, we go by a creep, then you climb. So first the baby creeps, and then when it's older, it's able to climb, and do the same. So read the easterns at the bottom where the baby creeps, and then we crawl up to the northern areas, and then we plot the area on the map as we read it like that. So if we're able to see, say for example, if they ask you Nuevo. Yeah, Nuevo. You're right there. Okay. You're at it. They ask you to locate Nuevo on the map. Oh, can you scroll up a bit so we can see the top part, Duvania?
Okay, sure. Let me go up from this angle again.
Oh.
Yeah, that's more better.
Oh, it's kind of, all right. I'll show another location because it's blocked.
What's blocked?
No, man. I'm not able to see the. Oh, I'm able to see now. Nuevo. All right, so I'm going to use Nuevo as an example, right? And I'm going to try to plot the 4-figure grid reference first. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to follow the eastings, right? And I'm going to read it from left to right. So 74, if you count with me, the first digit you see on the eastings, it's 74. And then you go to 75, 76, 77. And for the northerns, we'll go up, right? So we'll see 66, 67, 68, 69, and it goes onwards, right? So as I said before, first we're going to creep. So we're going to see what's at the bottom or at the top, and that will be the easting. So first, we're creeping across the page. Wait, can you do it for me, Duvania? I just realized.
Yeah, I'm trying to see if I can find the pointer, but I'm not seeing.
Yeah, I'm not seeing it either.
Okay, they're saying to use the annotate button, so I guess I'll try the annotate. Let me see. Okay, so let's see. What does this do? Can you guys see the pointer?
Yeah, man, we're seeing it.
Okay, great.
All right, go down to Nuevo for me, Duvania.
Nuevo.
Yeah.
All right, let me show the top part here. Okay, so here's Nuevo, guys.
All right, so I've explained how you read it first. So first you're the eastings, right? And then you read the northings, you creep and then you climb. Would anyone like to try to figure out how they'll plot it or what four-field grid reference they'll use for Nuevo? It won't be accurate, but just try to, visualize and estimate what you think the four-field grid reference would be. And if you're not sure, I'll guide you as you try to figure it out.
Miss 75, 65.
So 75, 65. Let me see. Yeah, that's correct. 75, 65. 75, 65. Remember Jaden, you creep and then you climb. So you read your eastings first and then you read your northings. Right? So it's 75, 65. Yeah, correct. You want us to try another one? Let me see. All these Spanish names. Let me see. The one just select one, circle one, anyone.
Hold on, I'm coming. Let me change this color to probably a brighter color that we can easily see. Probably pink.
The red was okay before.
No, not the pointer, the pencil, because I circled Nuevo just now. Yeah. So let's try. Let's see if we can try. Oops. Okay.
Oh, we can probably do one at the bottom.
Yeah, that's I was literally here trying to scroll to see if I could find the bottom area. All right, so let's do. Oh, it's not scrolling. I just want to
You
scroll.
have to turn off annotation first.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh Lord. Okay. All right. So we could do Mocha.
Yeah.
Let's try Mocha. So let me turn back the annotation on. And so we're looking for Mocha, and Mocha is right here. All right.
All right. So Jaden, I'm going to give you this one, okay? What would the four-field grid reference be for Mocha? You're right, 82, 82, 80, 62. Wait, is the bottom part 80? I'm not seeing it, Duvania.
Yeah, it's 80.
All right, so yeah, man, you have you've gotten the hang of it, yes. 80, 62. Wait, do you guys know I'm gonna do 6-figure at this stage?
Yeah, man. Yeah, they do.
Miss.
Oh yeah. And you know that for 6-figure, you just divide up each grid into tens, right?
Yes, Miss, but sometimes get confused when you divide the strokes.
Dividing the strokes.
A useful method that I try to use, because what you can do, you can carry a ruler into the exam, right? And you see like right in these areas, like from like along the lines, right? Hope I get it straight enough. Right, along the lines, if you have a ruler in when you're doing the actual exam, you can use your ruler as a guide to help you to evenly divide it into 10, right? So because you might find that if you're trying to do it freehand, you realize that it might be, you might have one line there, then you put a next line here, and then the lines might not be evenly spaced, or you realize that you have 10 and you still have more spaces left, right? So you can use your ruler as a guide to help you to evenly divide the area into 10, right? It's usually a much easier approximation. Yeah.
So, Miss, if we want to find the 6-figure from Wukan right now, how would you do that?
Okay.
How would you align?
All right. So in this case now, it's gonna be another approximation again, because 6-figure grid reference is the same 10. So me doing this without a ruler. So again, we're looking at this easting line right here. So we're looking at this one. And let me change the, all right, let me just do this one first. And then I'll change the color for the other one. So it's just trying to identify where you could possibly get 10 strokes from. So let me see. 1, 2. Five is supposed to be, okay, so you see, I'm trying to approximate, I think 5 should be probably a little bit higher. So let me go again. The 5 will be somewhere probably here. Somewhere, we'll probably, or is it still a bit off? Let's see. 1, 2, 3, or yeah, it's a little bit off. 5 probably could be a little bit more low. 5, let me see if I can get 10. 6, 7, 8. Yeah, you guys seeing what I'm talking about with the approximation. So if you have your ruler, right? Because I'm basically already at 10. 10 should be running you very close to this line. So I'm having a little challenge here trying to approximate it while looking at the screen, right? So I'm gonna try it one more time. Hopefully I can actually get it perfect this time. So we're looking at 5 being much, probably. Let me freestyle it. So 1, 2, gonna run into the same thing again. Let me try. Okay. Yeah, I'm running into the same thing again with the line situation, but 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10. So I guess another one could be somewhere in here. Then, so let me see what one, 2. I think this probably looks a little bit better. Tisheika, or should I do Topo?
No, man, you have the correct amount of lines, man. Wait, scroll
Okay.
down.
Scroll down.
Yeah, I'm not able to see the bottom part.
Hold on.
The actual full grid box.
Oh, if I scroll out, yeah, it's gonna shift. It's
Yeah.
gonna shift. You seen the
Alright.
18 here? Let me try to see if I
Oh.
can highlight it back. So this would
Yeah, I'm
be
sorry. I'm
this.
seeing it.
Yes.
1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Try using a blue here. And then it would be basically trying to repeat the same process again.
Oh,
Right
Duvania, you
here.
have one extra.
I have one extra.
Yeah.
Oh, hold on.
Yeah.
Let me see. Hopefully it doesn't throw off everything a little too. You know, the funny thing now, if I erase, it's gonna erase the whole thing.
Oh my. You
So
have.
I was wondering, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because yeah, there's one extra up there. My bad.
So, yeah,
For
but you don't
something,
have to erase it. Just
yeah,
guide. Just ensure that you have 9 strokes within each box, right?
yeah, 9.
Because the actual
9,
line
10.
would count as the 10.
Yeah, that's it.
So when you're reading the grid references, as I said before, you creep and then you climb. So I'm going to read the eastings first, right? And just imagine that Duvania has done the same thing on the eastern lines where she's marked the blue, right? So if you're just going to do it by an approximation, you'll see that Mocha is somewhere along 7, right? Mocha is somewhere along the 7-way mark on the eastern, right? And at that point, Mocha is what, 80? So that would be 80, 80, and 7, right?
Miss 7, so far it reach 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, man. It's past 5. I'm doing it from the center.
Wait, Tisheika, I remember you going up. So not 7. Wait.
Isn't it
Oh
going
yeah.
from
Wait, hold
left to
on.
right? It's going from
Hold
left
on.
to right.
I'm still. How much line is?
You're missing 1.
Yeah, I missed one.
Miss, on the pink line, I'm asking how much would that be? Mocha 7?
Oh no. Remember, we're doing the eastings first.
Yeah, but I'm saying after the 8062 will be the 4 figure, right? But we're doing the 6 figure now. So after the 80, you're not going to check how much you got. The next value that you will get after the 80 wouldn't it be the value on the pink line?
No, remember that's where we're reading the eastings. No, that's the northern lines. The
Oh, so
northern line.
it will be the blue line.
Yes.
They're coming after the 80, then the
Right.
pink line.
Yeah, because remember that we're still on that line.
Okay.
Yeah, so it would have been 80, as you said before, right? And then where would you put that line along the eastern? Where do you think that line falls? From 1 to 10.
Let me see if I can do about this 80 line here. Give me one quick sec.
No,
Uh-oh, I erased the blue. I erased the blue. I'm trying to get it perfect. Oh, or somewhat near, a bit better.
The
So it
one
doesn't cause confusion. Hold
one,
on.
just put a center line to mark the 5.
Okay, that's
Because
probably
it's,
best.
yeah, just put a center line to mark the 5, where 5 would be.
Probably about
You're right
here.
there. Yeah, man.
Yeah, here.
That's
Here's
good.
center line.
All right, so Kenzie, are you still with us, Kenzie?
Yes, Miss, I'm here.
All right, so now that we've read the eastern, right, and the eastern is 80, right?
Yes.
Where would you, to do the 6-figure grid reference, where would you put the third point? So it's 80.
85. So the 80 and then the number following the 80 would it be 5?
Yeah, you can say 5, right?
Yes, miss, because it
5.
has to be in line with the actual location.
All right, so 85. And what are you going to read next?
The northerns.
Right. And what do you
That
have
would be
northerns?
so that would be 80562, and then you'll find the other point.
And what's the other point there?
Or 4 or 5. That's just for approximation, because
It's a look at
Yeah,
3 or
it looks
4.
like a 3.
3.
Yeah, it looks like a 3. So you say 805
623
62 3. All right, so we have our 60-degree difference right there now, right? You want us to do another one?
Yes, Miss, for reinforcements.
All right. Duvania, you want to just select another point for us?
Hold on. Say.
Do I think that's Central Palmer. Or do you want to go up the top?
Wherever is fine. Where you said central, right here?
Wait. Oh, wait. No, you see TAB. I'm not seeing the words properly, but it's a tab over at 7462.
7460. Okay, give me 1 second just now. Right. 7462. I turned off the annotations. So
Yeah.
7462.
Ungraded. I'm not too sure about that. I don't really know how CXC marks, but it is worth a lot of the points. 25 at 25 points at that. So it may result in you losing some marks, but I don't know. I've never heard about you not, if you don't do it, it will give you an ungraded on your paper. However,
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah.
The thing though is what I was saying, because they're talking about marks, I think. If you look at the past papers, the mark scheme is usually the same. So like the total map work, the total section on the map work would be 25 marks. And then like grid reference, it depends on how they ask the questions, right? Because sometimes they might ask you to incorporate grid reference like quite a lot throughout the paper. So you might have something that they just ask you what crop, for example, on the 2023 paper, they ask you what crop is located or produced in grid square 4400, right? So that's a 1 mark question. A 6, just asking to state the 6-figure grid reference of a trig station, of a trigonometrical station, or like some feature could be another 2 marks, right? They might also ask you to identify and give the direction of certain features by giving you the grid reference, right? So having an understanding of these would help you to get like this 1 mark or these 2 marks, right? And looking at another question they asked about the height of the post office in a particular grid reference, right? So if you're able to find and identify these, it obviously, increases your chances of getting as many marks as possible for the map work section. Again, the total map work section will be also 25. And then of course, you have the non-grid reference questions that talk about drainage and road networks and settlement patterns and stuff like that. But yeah.
Miss, are we going to be able to go through some of those today?
Yeah, man. We can. We can. All right, so Tisheika.
Yeah, instead of doing the whole trying to draw the midpoint.
Oh yeah, let's do that. So tableau, that's what we're doing?
Yeah, just draw where 5 would be.
Let's do that. 5 is probably again about hierarchy. Looks like 5, I think so. Or should it be a little lower?
Yeah, a bit lower. That's
lower.
6.
Yeah.
All right, this is going to be our last grid reference, and then we'll move on to settlements and other stuff. All right.
That's okay? This one?
Yeah, man, that's good.
Okay, and then 5. Probably for this one, like this one and 4. Oh, the line is lean.
Yeah, man,
Somewhere here.
that's okay, man. So who would like to attempt this one? Providing me with the 6-figure grid reference for Tableau now. So Kenzie, are you going? Oh,
I'm looking.
guys, you can try, even if you get it wrong, we'll just correct you. So you can, give it a try. Even if you're not too sure right now. Errol, would you like to go? All right, so
we have Abigail, we have Ray. Ray was very active earlier. Ray, are you still there? Would you like to try?
Roshane and Jaden provided their answers in the chat, and they have, they have practically the same thing. Roshane has 73.8, 63 6. Let me see, 74.8, right? 62, 6. Yeah, and it's just a different by 0.1, by 1.
Yeah, this.
And this is just an estimation. We're not really ruling it one, but you're both on the right track. I'll give you both the mark. Yes. All right.
Hello?
So, as I said before, if you have any map work, if you can probably like print off one of these when you go home, screenshot it and print off and do a little practice by yourself at home, that would be really good. Right? So you can get in a little practice before the exam.
Hello?
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, Errol.
Oh, you were hearing.
Hi, ladies. Good evening. Hi, students. Good evening. I'm actually a teacher of geography. I have some students in here, so I'm just giving them a chance to express themselves. So I will be watching and not saying anything.
Oh.
If it's all right with you.
Okay, thank you for joining us, sir.
No problem.
Okay, so that's nice. You have another teacher here. That's all. That's good. That's good. So yeah, guys. So that's mainly the idea that you're looking at for grid references. And again, key thing to note: remember your key, right? So the key that's let me turn off the annotation. The key that's located at the bottom of the map, right? Because a lot of times the questions might ask you to identify particular features, right, within certain grid references, right? Let's see if I could find probably something simple here. So again, let's see. What could be a useful thing that I can see not all over the map. Okay, so we're seeing here in this section here, turn on my annotate. We're seeing what looks like a lake, right? Or it could be I'm not sure, probably a dam or something like that. We're seeing right in that section of the map. I'm not sure if they indicated it anywhere down here. No, they didn't, right? But should they ask, what water feature or what possibly, if in the case of a dam, what infrastructural feature, right, it is that we're looking at here, and they give a particular grid reference, right? You'd be able to identify and say, okay, so they're talking about this here. This could possibly be a lake, or it could be, a dam, right? Or some other, not dam, sorry, my bad, not dam, a reservoir, right? Some other feature here, right? So it's just things like that, remembering the grid reference and being able to identify features. So yes, the key, very important as it relates to this section as well. And we're also seeing here where insular roots are very common across this map as well. So they could ask you to, identify the grid reference of a particular insular root that's shown on the map. Yeah. I think one of the other features of map work that we could also look at is relief, right? So we talk a lot about contour lines, and we basically know that contours help us to determine the height of the land, because this is a 2D map extract. You can't actually, touch or feel it, but you're able to see the features represented on the map. So you're seeing a lot of contour lines, especially in this section of the map here, and they tend to be very close together, right? So could someone explain what do contours that are very close indicate? Right, Jaden, yes. So once contours tend to get like very steep, you're looking at close contours indicate that the relief has changed, and it's often in terms of like steep. So the land is getting steeper, right? So you're looking at the possibility of mountains or hills being located in this area, right? So the land is rising. So wherever you start to see close contours together, you can identify that, the relief is changing, right? And then if you look in this part of the map, same section here, you can see also where you have areas of steep, areas that are fairly steep, and then it becomes gentle, as indicated by, less close contour lines, and they kind of, start to space out a bit more. So, right, so you're able to see. And also, of course, you can identify specific types of features, right? Like ridges, you can tell conical hills, for example. You could talk about, hills, conical hills, ridges, valleys, based on the direction or the curvatures of the contour lines, right? So these are some very important tips to think about. So I would say that, especially if you're not strong with contours, because it's kind of a bit hard, might be a bit hard to explain without, doing the drawings for you guys. But if you're not so strong with contours, I would heavily suggest that, you do some revision. But I haven't seen where past papers have really stressed students being able to identify particular or very overly complex relief features from contour lines. So you could just basically have like a good grasp of it though. That would be very useful.
Miss, for example, suppose they probably ask you to probably explain what does the relief of the land has to do with the land use. Would you mention something like the topography and things like that? Like,
yes, of course, yeah, for sure. So
what else do you add?
All right, so let's look at that then, since you asked that question. All right, so relief of the relief or the topography, right, and how that would impact land use. So all right, let me erase these drawings off this map. All right, so back with the pointer. All right. All right, let's use our key. So we're gonna come to this section of the map here, but let's look at our key first. Okay, so built up area is indicated by this shade, right? And if you look here, apologies. If you look here, in this section where you have Nuevo, you have Aguadilla, you have Santa Barbara, and all of these places, right? You realize that if you look, well, the shading kind of makes it a little bit difficult to see, but this is a coastal environment, right? And typical of coasts, and if you even just look further along, right? Typical of coasts, you normally have flatland, right? And this flatland tends to facilitate the construction of a lot of infrastructure, right? So I'm having, I think my laptop is freezing here a little. So let me see. Okay. So, all right, so flatland, all right, let's use here. Because I mean, you can't really see the contours of the red shading. But let's use this area right here, right in this vicinity, and then along these other areas here. You see where it tends to be, it has a higher concentration or like more clusters, right, of development areas. And these black dots are various buildings, right? I'm not sure if it was indicated on the key. No, but typically the black dots are usually buildings. And you're able to see that there tends to be a lot of like building clusters along these flat areas, right? And relief basically allows people to have more room to construct. So flat land, there's more room to construct. It's much easier to construct, especially complex buildings. And of course, you're able to accommodate the heavy machinery that might be needed to construct, right? So that makes building much easier. And then if you even look further, like in this northern section of the map here, right? Across it, you kind of see that most of the concentration of these black dots, again, which represents buildings, they tend to be in areas where the relief, right, is much more like gentle land, so it's more flat, right? And as indicated again by the contour lines. So you can see even the location of a lot of the complex road networks, right? You're seeing where they tend to be, like you have more roads in these areas as well. And take this one also, for example, you see where there's higher, the relief gets steeper, or, you know, it becomes more mountainous. You start to see where the roads, because again, on the key, the key like tells you that you have unimproved dirt as indicated by the, you know, the dashed lines, the dotted lines, and light duty. So even the roads, you see where all of these steep close contour lines are, you're seeing that the road is not paved roads. You're having unpaved roads, or roads that really should be accommodating like not so much heavy duty because of the steepness of them, right? So things like that. So you look at how roads are, how difficult it might be to create roads and pave roads off in these steep environments. Also,
Duvania,
yeah.
to add on your explanation of like relationship between relief and settlement, it is also important that you know, like, not only how to describe how they look on a map, but to also know the names, right? So we have 3 main types of settlements that we normally see on a map. A simple map for CSEC. So we have our, wait, would anyone like to tell me the 3 types of maps that we normally see?
Myths, I know about linear, nucleated, and dispersed.
You're right. And as said before, because of the steepness of the land within mountainous areas, hilly areas, we'll typically find what type of settlement?
Dispersed.
Right, dispersed. When compared to, as the one I was saying before, on our flatlands where it's easy to build, it's easy to get machinery across, to clear land, to build houses, to build industry. What type of settlements would we normally find on these flatlands?
Nucleated or linear.
Right, nucleated and linear. And can you, like, using the 4-field grid reference that we would have done before, can you point out a settlement where you see a nucleated type of settlement?
Miss, I can't to the Eastings, right?
Oh,
Oh,
no.
It's 7664.
76.
64.
All right. Yeah, I see one at the edge right there, right? Right. So like you need to know how the types, like the names, not just how to describe them. But try to go home, as I said before, visit the site, have a look at the maps and know how to actually identify the different type of settlements, because they'll probably say locate 6 field reference where you can find a nucleated type of settlements. Why do people settle here? Those situational type questions. We can continue, Duvania.
Oh, okay. So yeah, as Tashika was saying again, regarding those settlement types. Possibly another one that we could look at is drainage. That tends to come back a lot. Drainage type questions. Okay, so let's see. So there's a main river here. I don't think there's another one no, okay. So this is a main river that we're working with down here. Could anyone tell me what course of the river we're looking at?
It's the lower course.
Lower course, right? So, and lower course, and could it possibly also be the middle course as well?
No, Miss, because the middle course would normally, well, in the lower course you normally have a lot of meanders,
Mm-hmm.
and that will normally be on flat land. And normally in the middle course, you would have it going down steep. So if you were to talk about it being in middle course, you would have to see a rise in contour lines, so increase in gradient to show that it's in the middle course or the upper course. But based on the map, it shows that it's mainly on flat land,
Mm-hmm.
so can see that it's in the lower course mainly.
Okay, so like especially for sections where, of course, the river is meeting the coast right here, that's definitely lower course. But then again, you tend to find a lot of meanders that take place in the middle course of the river as well. So if you're seeing, where a river, if you're getting an extract and the river is heavily meandered, chances are you might be in the middle course of a river. Tashika, do you agree or you disagree with that one? Just asking for a second opinion on that one.
Duvania is typically like that. Floodplains and meandering rivers. Yeah, middle
Right.
course.
Yes, all right, middle course. Yes, so I would say in this case here where you're seeing all right, maybe there's not enough meanders maybe here, but where you have the river heavily meandered, it tends to be in the middle course. But when you're starting to see like it getting closer to the coast, right, you're starting to see it being mostly in the lower course. And let's talk about drainage, right? Would you say that this river is well drained or poorly drained?
It's well drained.
Right, yeah, I would think it is well drained as well. You don't really have any like major presence of a lot of like lakes or you don't have that much, like large expanses of settled water or anything like that indicated on the map much. So I would say it's a um, well-drained river as well. So the map extra area that we're seeing, it's well-drained.
Miss, can you distinguish, please?
Between well and poorly drained?
Yes, please.
Okay, so when you're looking at well-drained, it's basically you're not seeing many lakes or any areas where, or ponds, for example. So you're not really seeing much area where water is settling or is concentrated outside of the river itself. And then poorly drained would be the opposite of that. You'd see a lot of areas indicated on the map that would literally be lakes, ponds, or anything like that, where water would accumulate. So in the absence of that in this section, we could say that it's a well-drained, the river is well-drained. Or the section of the map extra, the area, it's well-drained.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. I'm trying to see if I could easily see the drainage pattern here, but I'm not sure. The contours are making it a little bit difficult here. Tisheika, can you make it out?
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
It's a bit blurry on my side.
Yeah, it's not. But to tackle the drainage pattern like questions, basically you guys could just review what the drainage patterns tend to look like. I feel like that's one of the easiest ways. Like know what they look like, know their names, right? Of course, know what they look like. So of course, we have the dendritic drainage pattern, right? And that tends to sort of, let me see if I can pull up a picture that can easily depict, because I don't want it to get any sort of confusing any at all. So let's see. If I could get a tab open to show. So if I can have an easier diagram so it doesn't get confusing. Okay, so let me share this tab instead. Okay, so I think you guys should be seeing my screen right now.
We're seeing it.
All right, so yeah, so this is like an example of a dendritic drainage pattern, right here, and you can basically see, right, it kind of has this tree branch type of look, right, where the tributaries flow into the main river here, right? So the main river would basically act as a tree trunk, and then the tributaries, which would be these smaller ones up here, they would be acting as, the branches, right? And you can see where they enter into each other at an angle, right? So that would be how you could identify dendritic drainage patterns, right? Let's see the next one that it has here. Radial. So basically the radial drainage pattern, you guys can see where the rivers are flowing away from a common central point. So in this case, there's a volcano, right? And let's say maybe at the top of this volcano, there's probably like a huge glacier, right? And whenever the glacier starts to melt, you're seeing the meltwater is running down and it creates like a series of tributaries. And from that, you get like major rivers forming. So there's usually a central point of high relief, right? And the tributaries would flow from the tributaries and the river in essence would flow from this central point. And then, I don't think it goes, yeah, this website doesn't go further into anymore, but very unique one that I'd want us to look at is
The trellis.
yes, that one. That's a very unique drainage pattern, right? Let me see if I could find a nice diagram of it. That one's a little bit. Okay, I think this does a pretty good job here. It's blurry though. Okay, let's see. Let's see if I can find this one. Okay, share this tab instead. Are you guys still seeing the screen?
Yeah, we are.
Okay, great. So this would be the trellis here. I think it might be. Hopefully the neon color or whatever they use is not so bad. But the trellis one here, as you can see, basically it's a special. It occurs really under special circumstances, and it's not fairly common, right? And basically what happens is it's so distinct that you can see where the river and its tributaries basically meet at right angles, right? And it could be observed in like northern Trinidad, for example. So maybe if you get a map extract of northern Trinidad, you could possibly see the trellis drainage pattern, right? But yeah, that's basically how you could identify it. And you could read the snippet here as well. It tells you, you know, that basically there's structural control upon the streams because of geology. In such situations, the channels will align themselves parallel to structures in the bedrock with minor tributaries coming in at right angles. And they tend to be, right, so they tend to, you know, be developed in such areas. So this is what the trellis looks like. So yeah, it's just useful if you, you know, can identify these features, but first you have to kind of know what they look like, know what they are, and you could talk about characteristics, their characteristics. So for example, dendritic, you know, it has a tree-like appearance. Tributaries meet the main rivers at an angle. And of course, you know, being able to differentiate between the different drainage patterns. Tisheika, what else could you touch on? You could touch on distribution and settlements. Like 6.
We didn't you do that already? The settlement part?
Hold on, let me see if I can find out.
Did you do like vegetation? Like
Oh
economic
no,
activity?
I don't think I did vegetation. I don't think we did vegetation. I want to have a go at the vegetation.
All right, let me.
Think, oh yeah, because this map could do well. Yeah, I think this map could do well with vegetation.
All right, wait.
Yeah, this could do well with vegetation and link it back to relief.
Wait, do they only have forest labeled on the key?
Yeah, they only have forest. I'm
All
not seeing little. Probably could let me search and see if there's any other map in the meantime. You guys still seeing the Cape, the map, right?
Yeah, we are.
Okay, so yeah, in the meantime, we could.
All right, so typically, when asking about vegetation, they'll probably only ask you 1 or 2 things, like to identify the type of vegetation there and why is that type of vegetation, or why is that type of vegetation found in the area. So like, for example, they'll show you somewhere like a wetland vegetation, and typically on the CSEC map, you'll have your wetlands, you'll have your corals, you'll have your forest, your rice farms, whatever it is, you'll have them labeled. But this map is a bit simple. so we don't see them here right now. But as we can see on this map, in grid reference 7463, we can see where agriculture is done. And can someone tell me why they'll see agricultural type vegetation within this area?
Miss, can you repeat the question, miss?
Why is agriculture done in for your good reference 7463?
Is it because it's flat?
Yeah, because it's flat. It's flat land. It's easier for farmers to get access to the land. It's easy for them to clear the land and to transport their goods to other places, whether it be by the river, along the river, or along one of the heavy duty or medium duty, light duty roads, right? So that's really all you need to know honestly for vegetation, how to identify them based on the key that you will be provided with, as well as to know why is that vegetation found in that area. And possibly how does land use influence vegetation? So if we see, say for example, in the flats between from grid reference 74, 63 to 78, 63. Why is it that we don't see any forest right there? And imagine if that area was highly settled, could it be that the humans cleared that land area to build their settlements, stuff like that? How does human activity influence vegetation density? Also, you need to know how to identify like industries, like they'll ask you what type of service do you see between grid reference 74, 63 and 78, 63. And you should provide like 1, 2, 3 different type of industries. So you may see factories, you may see agriculture, you'll probably see schools, so say tertiary industry, hospitals, stuff like that. So I said before, when you leave tonight, try to pull up one of the maps and try to see if you are able to identify a few features on the map. Does anyone have any other questions on the map work section? Oh wait,
Miss,
Tisheika asked. Oh, okay, you could go ahead. You can go ahead.
Miss, angular bearings and gradients that someone was mentioning in the chat.
Oh, gradients and bearings. All right. The one you want to take that on, the gradients and bearings? Gradients and bearings. Okay, sure. But I wanted to just show this other map that I found that kind of has a bit more of an extensive key. Okay, go ahead. Let me see here. This one. Okay, so this has this one. It's this one. Yep, this one. So you guys can see this one has a much more complex key, I would say. So again, you still have your scale and stuff. And of course, the main roads and stuff like that, they actually label the buildings this time. So in the other map, I was talking about the fact that the black, like rectangles or squares, small squares that you never see, they represent buildings. They give you the labelings for these ones as well. So church, chapel, school, police station, hospitals, health centers, right?
They give you even the trigonometrical stations, right? The main one being the upward triangle and the minor being the inversed. They give you the contour intervals here as well, right? They labeled a bit more of the vegetation. So you see where they have this green patch here, right? And it tells you S is for sugar, so it'd be a sugarcane plantation, right? Or sugarcane is cultivated in that area, and C stands for coconut. So if you look at the map here, you can see, I hope it's not that bad, but you can see where coconut, you see the C here. So that would indicate coconut being cultivated. I was skimming through this map a bit earlier, but I wasn't seeing any S's for sugar. So yeah, when you guys have some time, you can practice just identifying those as well. And they do sort of this, I think Tisheika would have mentioned about talking about vegetation earlier. Mangroves and swamps kind of would indicate some vegetation as it relates to relief again. So, you're talking about your presence of mangrove vegetations like your red mangrove, and stuff like that. So you can see them here along the coast. So you'd be finding more mangrove vegetation in these areas. So here, for example, and here, right? And we were talking about drainage earlier. I wish I could find another map that would exhibit heavily poor drainage, but in this case we can see where there's a pond here. We're seeing a lake here, right? So these would indicate to some degree that the drainage in the area, the map extract, wouldn't be like a well-drained map. It wouldn't be a well-drained map extract, right? Also, I don't think much of these features are shown. Much of these features down here are really shown much on this extract here. Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah. All right, but yeah, so this would be like an example of a more complex key because there's more things to look out for on the map. Yeah, so gradients was another one that we were talking about, that someone was asking about, sorry. And gradients basically look towards, you're trying to identify or attribute a number to the sloping of the land, right? So you want to be able to tell someone that, hey, on this map, right, there is a relationship that you can find to tell someone the height difference, right? The height difference between two areas that can indicate how the land is shaped, especially as it relates to the steepness of the land. So for the gradient, it's typically usually just a simple formula, I would say. It would be the vertical distance in height. So the vertical distance over the horizontal distance. Is there a question in the chat? Okay, so right, you're looking at the difference in vertical distance over horizontal distance. And in a particular case where you could be asked the gradient between two points, or the gradient between 2 points along a line, right? You would basically just get the vertical difference, right? And then put that over the horizontal value. And yeah, plug that into your calculator. Please remember to walk with me calculator into the exam. And you get the gradient value.
Can you do a practical?
Let me see if I can. Hopefully this works. But then again, these contours, so hard to see. Okay, we'll try to see if I can't zoom once I have the annotation on. Let's see here. Okay, yeah, this is kind of hard to do here. Tisheika, is it blurry on your side? Because it's kind of bad on mine.
Oh no, it's not. It's clear.
Okay, hold on. So hopefully. Oh gosh.
Oh, you're talking in terms of the numbers.
Yeah. In terms of
it is a bit blurry. What you can probably do is you can probably like identify 2 points, and then you can just tell us what the contour line measurement is.
Okay, so let's see. This is a bit, I think I'd probably have to work on these because I'm having a little bit of a challenge seeing it on the screen. It's a bit blurry for me. I'm not sure if I could just work one and send it to the group chat. It's a bit blurry. I think I could try and do that. Work on and send it to the group chat. But aside from gradient, was there anything else? What was that, bearings?
Yes.
Okay, so that would be with your compass, right? So compass points, directions, and bearings. So of course, a very useful tool would be your, what's that tool that you would need, especially for bearings? Come on, guys, you need to tell me the tool, because if you don't know the tool, that means you'll go into the exam without the tool. So, right, a protractor. Your protractor is very essential. So calculator and your protractor. So guys, please don't forget your protractor, and yes, your compass as well, right? Please, guys, don't forget those. And yeah, your ruler as well, because you want to be able to get, those straight lines, right? So basically, when you look at a compass, right, you can, all right, when you look at your regular 4-point compass, right, you have your north, south, east, and set a notification. I think someone is in the waiting. Okay. You have your north, south, east, and west, right? And you basically can ascribe values to north, south, east, and west. So typically you have at north, your north value, you'd be looking at either putting it would either be at 0 degrees and very rare. Well, I wouldn't say use 360 at probably at any point, but it's gonna be either 0 degrees or getting much closer on like northwestern sides. You'd see that the value, if it's getting very northwestern, right, you'd be seeing that the value is kind of pushing closer to 360. But the only reason that happens is because you'd be treating the compass as like a full circle, right? So that north value would be, you'd be thinking of either 0 degrees or it might be approaching 360, depending on the direction in which you're calculating the bearing from, right? So north at east, now we'd be looking at 90 degrees, right? And then you're moving, because it's basically right angles, right? North to east is a right angle, so that's 90 degrees. From east to south, that's another right angle, so that's another 90 degrees. So south would have a value of 180. So, and then your western value would be basically, again, 180 plus 90, which is, 270, right? So again, with the values, you're looking at 0 degrees for north, or in some cases, depending on if you're calculating from the western side, it'd be pushing 360, right? And then east is 90, south is 180, west is 270, right? And basically what you do is you place the protractor. Hopefully, I hope you guys can follow with this, and I hope you guys could follow, because you'd have done this at some point in class, right? So you place your protractor, making sure that that center line in the protractor. So let's say we want to, let me see if I could annotate this. Let's say we want to find bearing of, let's use this trig station right here, right? We want to find the bearing of this trig station, right? From let me just choose a random point. Let's do this distillery area right here, right? Yeah, okay. So we want to find this, the direction of this from this. Now, from is a very important word. We're trying to find the direction of this. So La Poterie here from the distillery. So what we do is we draw our north line here at the distillery, right? So trying my best there. Draw a north line here at the distillery, right? And again, we'd label this so we don't get mixed up. North, of course, south is here, east here. Ooh. Yeah, okay, that's okay. And of course, we have west over here, right? And then what we do is we create, so we get a different color. We draw a line now from here to here. So we're looking at this, right? So we want the trig station, right? And then we basically, what we do now is use our protractor. So we'd ensure that the zero line of our protractor lines up as best as possible in here, right? In this center point here. And what you do is you'd place your protractor, and since it's on the right side here, we'd want that curvature of the protractor to be on the right side, right? And we just basically look for where the location on the protractor that this line would line up with. So it would look, if maybe, hopefully I can sketch this, do a pretty decent sketch. You'd have like the protractor looking something like this here, right? And then it would, of course, have its semicircular shape. Oh, are you guys following? Hoping you guys are following. All right. And of course, as I would have mentioned, this here would be 90 degrees, east would be 90. So of course, this is 90 degrees here at east. So then you'd be looking at how much right here, what's the value here on the protractor that this blue line would have. Right? That value there. And then what happens if you have to do a value on the western side? Now, let me see if I could find something to another location that we could possibly use. So that would give you a numerical value. This one would probably be somewhere over 100, of course, probably Not really sure, but somewhere between 100 to probably 120 or somewhere there. I can't really give a proper one. Yeah, a 360-degree protractor really makes life way easier for you. So if you have a 360 protractor, that's a plus. If you don't and you have the regular semicircle, you still can do the grid reference as well. So don't worry. Let me see if I could find somewhere on the western side. Or I could just say on the western side, basically, guys, you could literally just you could add, right? So in this scenario here with the same distillery, let me try and put it back here, right? You would add. So you know that once you're now on the western side, it would mean that you'd have gone all the way from here to back to 180, right? And then if it's somewhere in between this section here, you're looking at adding how much the value on the protractor would have to 180, right? So that's like a simple way to put it. And to know that you're on the right track, just remember, if it's located somewhere between south and west here, it cannot be less than 180, and it can't be less than 180, and it can't be more than 270, right? So you'd put it over here, you'd find the zero, you find the line where it's lining up with, and then of course you just add that value to 180, and then you'd be getting your value. So if it's somewhere like between here, you could be looking at like a value of like 200 or 210, 215, right? Values like that. And then if it's up here, you'd be looking at the same thing, right? You could just use that way of keeping in mind that the aim is that you're treating the compass like it's a full circle, right? A full 360-degree circle. Right. And yes, the inner numbers of the protractor as well, right? To keep in mind that as well. So is everyone following with great bearings? Sure. Students who asked about bearings. And yeah, especially for the calculation, remember to keep in mind that you're looking at it from north in a clockwise direction. So keep in mind clockwise. So that's why we were going from north to east, then we went to south, right? So keep in mind the clockwise. Try to remember clockwise, especially if you have you don't have a 360 protractor, right? Keep in mind about the clockwise direction of reading. I think we could call this session now. I'm not sure if there's anything else that you guys might want clarified tonight. I think we've run pretty late. It's now a couple minutes after 11. So I will stop the recording here.